We recorded.
Ha ha ha.
We are ready to go. We're recording. We are open.
Okay, let the record indicate it is 5:03 p.m. and the Warwick City Council Finance Committee has been called to order. Phil, if you could just read those numbers into on site for everyone.
Very good. This meeting is being held virtually via Zoom application. You may access or participate in the meeting using a Zoom application on a smart device or on a PC via web at zoom.us and clicking on join a meeting in the upper right hand of the page. The webinar ID is 97887869794. You may also attend by dialing in. The toll-free numbers available anywhere in the US would be 1-877-853-5247, 1-888-788-0099, 1-833-548-0276, and 1-833-548-0282. Please note, if you experience trouble via a toll-free number, please try the next number on the list. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Phil. Appreciate that. All right, first order of business, I need a motion for the acceptance of the minutes of the committee meeting held on November 16th. May I have a motion, please?
Favorable action. Seconded.
We have a motion favorable. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. First item, 2016-014, banking services. Is Lynn on?
Right here.
Okay. Hi, Lynn. How are you?
I'm good. I am requesting a 3-month extension for our banking services bid. It expires on December 31st. I already have asked for an extension before, and I'm asking for an additional one as with COVID closures here and with vendors and back and forth. I just haven't gotten the questions answered to the banking vendors quickly enough for them to give us a good response. And I want to have a good response for this bid.
Okay.
So it's been extended. We should get the responses in soon. Very soon. I think it's due any minute now. And then it will be awarded soon in the new year, hopefully.
And how long of an extension, Lynn, you looking for?
3 months, which
3
would be
months. So
$17,460.
It would be what?
$17,460. Sorry, long day. $17,460 for 3 months.
Okay, so you need an extension of $17,460 for 3 months.
Correct.
And you're going to be, are you going to be rebidding this or just an
It hasn't
extension
closed
on it?
yet. It has not
Okay.
closed yet. I extended it so that I had more time to answer all the questions.
Okay, and the extension will be to what date?
I don't remember. I think it's next
3
week.
months from the end of,
The extension for this award is 3 months.
okay. So are you looking for beginning of
goes out-
March?
Sorry, you're breaking up quite a bit. It would extend till March 31st.
Okay, okay, so extend to March 31st. Okay, so you're looking for a motion for an extension for 3 months and $17,460, is that what it is?
Correct.
Okay. Any questions from members of the committee? Any questions from members of the council? Any questions from members of the public? Are there any questions from members of the public? Okay, I need a motion.
I move favorable action.
Seconded.
Okay, we have a motion for favorable action on 2016-014. That motion is to award an extension for 3 months, which will be effective March 31st. And the amount of the extension is $17,460. Is that correct, Lynn?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, we have a motion. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Item 2020-223, purchase various new tires, found on page 14.
Good evening, everyone.
Commander? Good evening, Commander.
The police department is requesting an additional $3,000 in spending authority under 2020-223B that you indicated. The police department had originally requested $24,000 in spending authority for the tire bid, which is scheduled to expire December 31st. As of this date, we have almost expended all of that money. And with the upcoming months, we just want to make sure we have some money still in there. This is not an increase to the tire budget. It's just the drawdown. The current contract does not exceed $24,000. This will increase it to $27,000. If approved, it'll be paid for by the Warwick Police Operating Budget Code 30-211 tires. And I just wanted to bring a couple of points home. Looking at some things a little deeper here, we had a couple of unexpected costs. Just since October, we had 6 police vehicle tires that had side nails in them. This resulted in approximately a cost of $810. We've also replaced the EVOC cars, which go through a lot of wear and tear when they go through this course. We had 9 academy recruits, and that was about $1,300. And then the police boat, the trailer that was donated, the tires were, the trailer's in great shape, the tires were not. They needed to be replaced, which came to about $1,200. So the total expense for all of those was just over $3,000. We may not expend all of that money, the $3,000, but this will make sure that we have enough to get us to the end of the calendar year. And then this budget is for, I'm sorry, this particular item is for January 1st, which will go through December 31st of next year.
Okay. Commander, I know you and I spoke about this earlier today. Thank you for the call. So with respect to these tires, is there any possibility of a JAG grant or any type of grant that might still be available for them, or?
Typically, we don't purchase tires with JAG grant money, especially because it's a budgeted item, but it is something that we haven't researched extensively.
Okay, it was just a question that came up in my mind after you and I spoke. But and the other thing is, as you pointed out, we have more SUV tires now than your traditional automobile tires, which those tires are costing us more money too, right?
Yes, and the thing about the SUVs, they're a much safer vehicle. They use the same tire that is on the police Interceptor, but they wear out faster because the vehicle itself is so much heavier.
Sure. Okay. Any questions from members of the committee? Councilman Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Commander.
Good evening.
You said that if we approve this, it goes from December to January?
Nope, I'm sorry, this will go just to the end of the year, and then the new tire bid will kick in January 1st and go to December 31st of next year. So this 3,000 is just to get us to the end of this calendar year.
Okay, so then so your budget for that, and again, I'm sorry for, maybe I should know this, but your budget for that is different from what the city calendar is of fiscal year?
Yes, because they're on alternate dates, so it doesn't fall in line with the same fiscal year. It's about 6 months off.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So this item, and Councilman Howe, it's still going to mature on December 31st, 2020.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions from members of the committee? Do we have any questions from members of the council? Are there any questions from members of the public? Do we have any questions from members of the public? Hearing none, I need a motion, please.
Move for favorable action.
Seconded?
We have a motion favorable. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Commander. Item 2021-199, floor mats, wet and dry mop rentals, found on page 29. Hi, Christie.
Aye. Department of Public Works is requesting to award this bid to New England Industrial Uniform Rental Service in the amount of $12,000 for 1 year, January 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2021 for the rental of floor mats, wet and dry mops.
Okay. Christie, and what, I know I ask you this every time, but we'll ask again. What are these buildings going to be, what are the buildings that are going to be receiving these items?
The city buildings, so Holden for the section that houses city offices, Public Works, the City Hall, Pilgrim Senior Center, I think Fire Station 1, the Police Department. Oh, there's more.
Nothing for annex building, correct?
No.
No.
I mean, that's where the mops go because that's where building maintenance is housed, but
Right.
they're not using any cleaning supplies there.
Not where it's being used.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. And there was only one bidder on this?
There was. This is the second time it went out to bid. The first time we did not receive any responses.
You didn't get any?
No.
Interesting. Interesting. Was anyone called to find out why they didn't bid at all?
No.
No. Interesting. Okay. Any questions from members of the committee? Any questions from members of the council? Do we have any questions from members of the public? Are there any questions from members of the public? Hearing none, I need a motion.
I just have one quick question, Chairman, if that's
Oh.
okay.
Sure, go ahead, Councilman, yes.
Christie, is this the company we're currently using?
No, currently we have UniFirst.
Okay, and they didn't rebid?
They did not.
Okay. I will move,
Sorry, I said interesting. Okay,
I will move favorable action.
we have a motion favorable. We have a second, Councilman Howe. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Of course not. I'm sorry. I didn't get the comments from members of the public. Sorry. Let me back up a bit. Any comments from or questions from members of the public? Do we have any questions from members of the public?
For the record, Mr. Chairman, as of right now, there are 0 attendees.
Okay. Thank you. And just repeat the motions, please, Councilman McAllister.
Sure, I will move favorable action.
Seconded.
Okay, seconded by Councilman Howe. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Christie.
Thank you.
Item number 2021-222, found on page 32. It is purchase electric mountain bicycles.
Good evening again. Police Department is
Commander.
requesting authorization to purchase 2 Trek electric mountain bicycles to be used by Community Services Division for a variety of reasons. As you are aware, the city has numerous bike paths, walking paths, inaccessible by motor vehicles. These bicycles will allow the department to maintain active patrols in areas that include the National Grid power lines, Rocky Point Beach, the park area, the city's coastline, wooded areas, parades in some of the more densely populated neighborhoods. The police department went out to bid on the bicycles as well as related safety gear such as bike pouches and helmets. We didn't originally receive anything We called up some vendors and we were able to get 3 different price quotes, the lowest one being NBX Narragansett Bikes. The department recommends issuing the purchase to NBX Narragansett Bikes as the lowest quote received. The total price of the 2 Trek bikes and safety gear came to $6,783.01. The funding source, if approved, will be from the department's community police budget code 30-230, which I would just add, when we put together the fiscal budget at the beginning of the fiscal year, we had noted that we were looking for an increase of $10,000 to the community policing budget specifically for these bikes. So we did present that to the city council, if everyone recalls. And we ended up finding a price for these that were lower than what we researched at that time.
Thank you, Commander. Commander, I think in reading the documents, the 3 companies that bid as a result of you or someone in the department making calls for pricing were 3 of the people that had originally received a request for bids. Did anyone ask those 3 companies why they didn't bid in the first place?
I honestly don't know, sir. I couldn't speak to that.
I mean, that would be a question that I would certainly be interested in knowing, why they didn't bid, if in fact they had received the bid or the correct person received the bid, and why they didn't bid. But, my compliments to whomever got on the phone and started requesting some bids for these items. It's just odd that we seem to be moving backwards a bit on some of this stuff. And also, Commander, is there any state bids out there for this type of an item?
No, these items are fairly new and they've been being purchased privately. They're just kind of taking off. They're kind of a modern bicycle, if you will, to police agencies.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and these would be used for the walking trails and along different areas in Rocky Point and some of the other parks, et cetera, right?
Yes, sir. They'll certainly alleviate the stress of an officer becoming exasperated from traversing the city without that type of power. So it'll definitely give us the ability to keep officers out there longer, and they'll be able to cover more of the city.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, and it's not a ton of money to, I think, get even more productivity. Any questions from members of the committee? Any questions from members of the council? Any questions from members of the public? Are there any questions from members of the public? Hearing none, I need a motion.
Move for favorable action.
We have a motion favorable. We have a second. Councilman Howell seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you, Commander. Next item, 2021-223, FBI LEDA supervisor training, found on page 38.
Yes, only because I knew nobody wanted to wait hearing from me one more time. Police Department is seeking authorization for specialized training expense for 8 of our newly promoted sergeants. The training involved is attendance at the FBI Law Enforcement Supervisor Leadership Institute hosted by the agency. This is a 56-6. This course was a 5-day program designed for first-line supervisory level law enforcement professionals focusing on emergency trends, challenges in law enforcement, and the contract that we have for the police department does require the training for all of these supervisors. The training was originally several months back. It kept getting pushed because of COVID, and we were finally able to entertain the training in November here at a total cost not to exceed $5,076.35.
Again, thank you, Commander. We also spoke about this item earlier today, and just give us the for everyone's benefit, the overview of the amount of sergeants that you have coming up and potentially some officers as a result of retirees or whatever.
Yes, so I would premise it by saying that this particular training is about $700 per person, which is a really good price. We're paying about twice as that to attend training at some of our local universities. This is also a 56-6 because of the FBI specific training for supervisors. This is just the first level, the sergeants. They also offer training for mid-level lieutenants, captains, executive training, in which there's actually a tri-training award that the FBI gives to each individual. We have had officers in the past go through all those ranks and achieve that award. This particular one with the number, you'll notice it's just sergeants. So I do anticipate that we'll make captains, lieutenants, and even more sergeants in the future. This type of training will continue, and we'll continue to use this particular location as a resource.
Okay, that's good, Commander. Of course, I know I can feel free to speak for not only myself and my colleagues. The training is vital for these first responder jobs that you and fire department have, et cetera. Certainly a worthwhile investment. Any questions from members of the committee? We have any questions from members of the council? Any questions from members of the public? Do we have any questions from members of the public? As Councilman Howell said, it is a quiet evening. We don't have anyone in attendance. I think it's these Zoom meetings. Okay, hearing no questions, I need a motion.
I move favorable action.
Second.
We have a motion for favorable. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We will move on. Once again, an acceptance of the minutes from November 16th.
Favorable action.
We have favorable, we have a motion for favorable. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, starting out number one, PCR 116-20, the docket. Move on to item 2, PCR 117-20, resolution to abatements.
Good evening, Neil Dupuy, Director of Assessing.
Good evening, Neil.
This month, we have abatements in the amount of $9,347.19. Again, this month, the majority of the abatements are for exemptions that have just been applied for, but I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Neil, you have two accounts for 900 and one account for 300. Those were just new exemption applications that have been received?
The $900 ones are a circuit breaker program. That's a low income exemption.
Right.
Do you know which the $300 one is? I don't see that.
No, 800, I'm sorry. I meant 800.
The 800 is a circuit breaker. It's a sliding
Okay.
scale, so depending on their income, they could get 800, they could get 1,000. Depends on their level of income.
Neil, have you been receiving more inquiries regarding what exemptions are out there for our residents? I know I've received a couple of calls and provided them with the forms that you actually had given me some time ago for what is available. Have you been receiving more inquiries about that?
I'm not sure if we received more. It's definitely been more condensed because with COVID, everybody bunkered down for a little while. And then as they came out, we did get a few more calls and a lot more applications. But I'm not sure if we spread that all over the 5-month period that we're somewhat closed down, if it would have been the same or not. You'd have to look at that.
Okay. And what do we do on the city side for I guess I'll say, educating our citizens, of the circuit breaker and the senior citizens exemptions, military exemptions, et cetera, et cetera. Do we do any type of educational mailing on a calendar or anything of the kind?
Right now, what we have is on our website, on the assessors page, there's information about all the exemptions. There's also information on the back of every tax bill that goes out. But I have been looking into maybe doing a mailing or even an advertisement, sometime in February or March, to see if we can get some people to come in before the tax bills are issued.
Yeah, because I'm thinking also with respect to Councilman Ricks's ordinance that he's looking for in his committee. I think that it certainly would be saving time and money, time on your end and money on the taxpayers' end as a cost to having to back up and do all these things later, and would also provide the administration with a more accurate number for what they can plan on collecting versus going through the year with abatement after abatement. So I think that to Councilman Ricks's point, I think that might be something to consider in that committee that you're looking at, Councilman Ricks, for maybe some sort of or a better process of educating the taxpayers what's available out there. Because if people don't have to keep redoing these things and we don't have to keep putting out abatements unnecessarily, it's gonna end up, while it's gonna cost you money in abatements, it's gonna save you a lot of money and time. So anyways.
No, duly noted. I will make a quick comment on the abatements because we budgeted about $1.1 million. And right now, even with the abatements in front of you tonight, we're only running about 200,000. So there'll still be some more, but I just want to let you know where that stands at this point.
Good job. Good job. So you budgeted, say that again, repeat that again.
We budgeted $1,150,000 for abatements for the year. At this level, and not all the appeals have been heard by the tax board yet, but at this level, we're about $200,000, including what's in front of you tonight. So substantially below budget with the abatements.
Good. Okay, any questions from members of the committee? Any questions from members of the council? Do we have any questions from members of the public? Are there any questions from members of the public? Hearing none, I need a motion on PCR 117-20.
I move favorable action.
Seconded.
We have a motion, we have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Neil. Next item, PCR 195-19, a resolution relative to creating a commission to study health insurance benefits. Councilman Sinapi.
Want to hold that to the second meeting in January, please?
Hold till the second meeting in January. You're testing me. You're testing me. Second meeting in January, 22nd. Oh, no. January 20th. So we have a request by the sponsor to hold until January 20th. Can I have a motion?
I'll make that motion to hold to the second meeting in January 20th.
We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman. Next item, resolution addressing fiscal request for education for fiscal year 2020 through 2021. Councilman Sinapi, it's not drafted.
Same thing, please.
Hold to January 20th. We have a motion, please.
Motion to hold to January 20th.
Seconded.
We have a motion to hold. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item PCR 108, item number 5, PCR 108-20, 2019-406, State of Rhode Island toilets, portable rentals. We had held that at the previous meeting. Actually, there's a couple items held for Parks and Recs at the previous meeting. Okay, James, you are here. So you got the floor, sir.
Thank you for holding that last meeting, Mr. Chairman. I was dealing with a family matter that day. Okay, so we want to, through section 612, extend the contract for portable toilets to increase our spending authority by 7,000 and raise our bid cap to 32,000. What happened with this summer season is that obviously with COVID-19 and the premium placed in having clean facilities, most of the porta potties in busy areas at the beaches and things like that, we put more out and we had them cleaned daily, which increased the price of the expenditure. So this increase will get us into the beginning of next year and into the next budget.
So a lot of this was a result of the activities at the beaches.
The beaches, the fields, other areas. So wherever we had porta potties, we put more out than we normally would, and we left them out longer because the weather was better and they needed to be clean because public health is number one right now.
Sure, exactly. So do you think that that the beach attendance was actually up this year?
I can't speak to beach attendance, but the attendance, but the parks in general were extremely busy this year. And I think because things were closed down, people were going outside, they're going to the parks, they're going to the fields.
Sure. Okay. All right, any questions from members of the committee? Any questions from members of the council? Do we have any questions from members of the public? Are there any questions from members of the public? Hearing none, I need a motion.
Move for favorable action.
Seconded.
We have a motion, we have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, James. Next item, PCR 109-20, liquid chlorine from McDermott Pool.
We reviewed the one bid submitted by Roberts Chemical and wish to award it to them. The old contract expires December 31st of 2020. The new contract will begin January 1st and run through December 31st, 2021. The cap is 20,000 and it'll be paid out of Chemicals Pool.
So James, since this COVID thing has kicked in and consumed just about everyone's life, would you say the use of the pool has increased or decreased since March?
Well, the pool has been closed since March, so I'd have to say it decreased.
Okay, so it still is closed.
It's still closed.
Okay. And do you have an inventory of chlorine now, being that I'm sure chlorine was purchased earlier, anticipating, a full season? Do you have inventory of chlorine now?
There is chlorine at the pool now. I can't tell you exactly how much, but I know we haven't used it, a lot of it since March, so I could try to gauge that. So I would expect that we would be spending less on chlorine in the coming months than in previous years.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any questions from members of the committee? Any questions from members of the council? Do we have any questions from members of the public? Are there any questions from members of the public? We still have 0 attendees out there from the public. Okay, I need a motion.
Move for favorable action.
We have a motion for favorable. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that ends our business. It is 5:37 and the Finance Committee is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
So Ordinance Committee would be up next, but we are not eligible to begin that until 6 p.m. So we'll be back with you at that time. The time is 6 o'clock, so when the counselors are ready, the ordinance committee is eligible to begin.
Thank you very much. I call the ordinance committee at 6 o'clock. Just to go over again, we do have, we are available for the public if they want to view. I don't know if we have any participants. Looks like we do have one, so it is working. Just wanted to confirm that. The numbers are available on the website, the city council website. You can see that, the Secretary of State's office as well. And we will also go over the numbers again before the start of the council meeting at 7 o'clock. First off in the ordinance committee is the acceptance of the minutes for the November 16th meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
As favorable action, favorable, it's been moved and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. First off is PCO 9-20, an ordinance in regards to amending Chapter 40-30, PCO 8-18, smoking prohibited in public schools and on school grounds. This is Councilwoman Travis, first passage, not drafted. What's your pleasure, Councilwoman?
I'd like to hold that until February. We're still having trouble meeting.
Okay. First meeting or second meeting in February? What would you like?
We'll shoot for the first meeting.
Okay. I'll make that motion on behalf of the sponsor to hold until the first meeting of February. What is the date?
February 1st.
February 1st. That's easy enough. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved in second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Number 2 is PCO 16-20, an ordinance relative to pertaining and regulating charitable donation bids. This is for first passage. Councilman Ricks is the sponsor. Councilman Ricks.
Good evening. I'm really excited about this ordinance. I've been working on it for months, and it wouldn't have been possible to get to this point without the help of our colleague, Councilman Tim Howe, as well as the help of so many folks in the administration, including Lucille Dean and our building official, Al DeCourt. Let's see. I suppose to give a brief overview, I know that it's been a problem at several locations in Ward 2, and it's become very much highlighted since the pandemic started. And speaking with Councilman Howe, I know that it is an issue at different locations in Ward 3 as well. I'm sure that many of us here have experienced issues when it comes to these collection bins where people can drop off clothing or similar donations. But unfortunately, it ends up that the organization that puts the collection bin out either may put it very close to the road and obstructs the view of traffic, or otherwise is not checking it nearly as often as they should. And that results in people tending to dump garbage bags of donations or loose donations out next to the bin. And next thing you know, that whole area becomes something of a dumping site and an eyesore and even a hazard for folks who want to just use the sidewalk. So to give a little recap on this, and I also can't forget to thank Kyla Pakia, or I'm sorry, I'm butchering your last name, but thank you to Kyla, because without her guidance in this regard, you can just see from the length of the ordinance, a lot went into this draft to make it 6 pages, single-spaced, and that's all necessary because this is a complicated issue. Donations of this nature, they can involve for-profit as well as non-profit charity collection agencies. And for that matter, it can have implications as to the First Amendment, as well as other aspects of the Rhode Island and the United States constitutions. So what we were trying to accomplish in this is set some rules and regulations that are simple for the organizations to follow, and likewise simple relatively simple as can be for the city to be able to follow. Some of the nuances from this I do want to highlight are that instead of setting this on some sort of calendar year or the like in terms of the renewals, something that was suggested over at the building department was that, relatively speaking, January is a lighter month for them than the month of December. So the renewals could be due as of January 31st. And that way, when the building department is sending out renewal notices and inviting the charitable organizations to send in their applications or renewal applications, then the building department is taking on that task during a time that they're not quite as busy as the very end of the year. Some other nuances to this are that now, and to say, I should also preface this, that we're not creating this from scratch. The basis of this is tried and proven. There are a few other towns, cities and towns in Rhode Island that have similar ordinances, and this one was largely based on the comprehensive ordinance that Coventry had, and I think that we've made quite a few tweaks and improvements to it through the draft and through speaking with folks in the building department to make sure that this would be something that we can implement effectively for the benefit of everyone involved. Another aspect I'd like to draw your attention to is the fee schedule. This is important because we want to satisfy two objectives with the fee schedule. First, we want to make sure that this is affordable for nonprofits as well as for-profit, like that we're treating the for-profits and nonprofits even-handedly to comply with the Constitution, and also just keep it affordable for them, while also recognizing that when the charitable donation bins go out, that doesn't mean that it comes without a cost as is. The donation bins themselves cost money to construct, and often if it's on a location that's not actually owned by the organization that owns the same bins, then they're frequently paying a fee. So it would not be unreasonable for a modest fee to be included. And then in determining what that fee would be, we took a look at what the cost to enforce would be. And some of this, because we have not been enforcing in this manner before, some of this is an estimate, and we don't know how much exactly enforcement will have to go into this, but we tried to figure out what would be something where this can essentially be self-funding without placing any sort of undue burden on the organizations. So with that, I don't want to go too far into the weeds. I would want to mention one quick thing before I lose track of it, is that one of the final amendments we had was as to exactly where this ordinance would find its home in the Code of Ordinances. And so for that reason, before there is any motion, assuming that this committee chooses to move forward with this, there would be a couple of minor amendments that would be needed. So on the first page, line 9, it would need to be changed from Article 8 to Article 2. And then similarly on the first page at line 21, it would again need to state Article 2. And it would also need to briefly state that Chapter 32 is hereby being amended to read junk dealers and charitable donation bins, because right now Chapter 32 is entitled to junk dealers. It has exactly one article that pertains to junk dealers, and for lack of a better place to put this new article, it seemed that as charitable donation bins and junk dealers have in common is that they are taking these goods that people are otherwise discarding. It seemed that that was the most natural place for this particular article. But now that I've given a bit of an introduction to PCO 16-20, I would certainly yield the floor to members of the committee.
Sure. I will ask committee members first if they have any questions.
I have a few.
Yep, Councilman Sinat.
So, well, the first, I guess, is more of a suggestion / I'm going to do it anyway. The notice in here says it's going to go to the address given to the city. At one point, I'm going to move for an amendment just to have any notice that's being sent to be sent to the registered agent on the Secretary of State's website, given that you require them to be registered anyway. And that way, nobody can cry foul and say, oh, I didn't tell you. It's like, well, it's the same rules as you have for the Secretary of State. So you're supposed to be complying with that anyway.
I would agree.
And then the other thing, so on its face, this ordinance, well, I guess there's two things. One, if I'm a company, there's no way I'm putting a donation box. But if based on your experience, those other towns that have enacted this, if they still or have donation bins, then my view is kind of irrelevant. The other point I have, concern, I guess, is on its face, this seems to cover things that it probably didn't intend to cover, like the Greater Warwick Lions Club. Like we have small little boxes, for instance, in the library to connect eyeglasses that no one wants anymore, and then we donate them to people who need them. And I assume that this is not trying to capture that because we're talking about small containers actually in a building. I'm not entirely sure, but I fear that this would capture that unintentionally as well. And I don't know if you want to address that, Jeremy, or if any of the various attorneys on board want to address that.
Councilman Sinapi, thank you. I'm glad that you brought that up because taking a quick look at the definition of donation drop-off box, and I might be missing something in the rest of the PCO that makes that distinction. But now that you brought it up, I think that your concern could be addressed through a simple amendment that redefines donation drop-off box to, at the relevant place, include the word outdoors. And so, certainly we're not trying to regulate any sort of indoor activity. We're concerned about these boxes that are stored outdoors.
All right, perfect. I think that's all I have for the moment. Oh, wait, I guess one quick thing. Do you know if those other cities and towns that you model this off of, if there's still actually donation bins that go up anywhere in their cities or towns once they pass this?
I believe so, but it's not something that I looked into too closely. I'd imagine that one could certainly find donation drop-off boxes in Coventry. I just haven't been out there myself to look.
Yeah, it seems like a safe bet. I was just curious. That's all I have for the moment.
Thank you. Any other questions from members of the committee?
I have a question.
Yep, members from the council?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep, Councilman Howe.
Thank you. I would like to identify that a couple meetings ago, I requested to be a co-sponsor of this, and if I stand corrected, Councilman Ricks, you allowed that, correct?
I did.
Thank you. And the reason why I asked that is because I want to show you, this is what this is why I decided to become a co-sponsor. That is on Alfred Avenue, right off Strawberry Field in Sandy Lane. That is a donation box. As you can see, where all the garbage is blocking the sidewalk, forcing people to walk out into the street. No longer was it a donation box, it became a trash receptacle. And interestingly, when phone calls were made by a constituent that was very concerned about the appearance, but also the safety, he got diverted to a few places and he ended up getting an email from someone in New York. There was no one in the state of Rhode Island, and the person in New York, he called on a Monday, and the person in New York said, oh, we'll have that cleaned up by Sunday. So again, it was something, and I want to compliment DPW, and because it was a safety issue, and the Warwick Police, it was a safety issue. They went out and cleaned it up to ensure the safety of our citizens. So I want to compliment and thank Councilman Ricks for beginning this process, because that is something that actually was coming up right when we talked about that, Councilman. So this is what this is targeting. I understand what Councilman Sinapi is saying, but I want to say this is what we're trying to address. And it also brings it more local, and it puts more responsibility on the people, these bins. I just need you to think about what I just said, where we called, made a phone call, sent an email, someone in New York answered for a bin that's on Alfred Avenue in Warwick, Rhode Island, and said within a week, we'll clean up that massive safety breach that is right next to a bank used by our citizens off a main road, that the people have to walk in the main road to go around the garbage. Shows you, so we need more local activity here, and this is why I support it, and this is why I'm asking for everyone to, if we can come up with a compromise. But Councilman Ricks, thank you again very much for allowing me to co-sponsor and writing this up. And also thank you to Ms. Pecchia Esquire.
Thank you. I believe Councilman Lattiser is next.
Oh, yes, thank you. Councilman Ricks, I also want to compliment you on this this ordinance, you as well as Councilman Howe. There obviously was an extensive amount of work put into this, and I can concur with you and Councilman Howe, because I've had a couple of areas, one in particular in my ward that has been a problem, was a, I would call it a significant problem for some time, and it was not receiving any attention from anybody. The same picture as Councilman Howe put up was a similar situation to the one I had. I was able to track down the owner of that particular company that was responsible for the bin after a fair amount of research, and it actually went well. It was within a couple of days, he had the mess, as Councilman Howe described it, a trash disposal thing is what it was. He did have it cleaned up. There has been, on occasion, falling off the wagon, so to speak, and going back to some of the problems, but a phone call did clear it up. Just a couple of things that I have as a question is, you specify in here 5 feet from a roadway. I would ask if 5 feet is adequate, because in speaking from experience, I know people have complained over the years about cars being parked a little close to a sidewalk and they can't see around the corner. Complaints about snowbanks from different places all over the city that are blocking the view when they're trying to turn out on the street. I know for certain that some of these locations that they're referring to, the accessibility to the street is, you certainly need to be closer than 5 feet to the street in order to see past whatever that obstruction is. So I don't know if 5 feet is adequate. I know you addressed something further in that if it does prove to be a problem, that it'll be addressed. I just don't know if maybe it's something that you want to increase a bit now as opposed to waiting and see if it is a problem. And Councilman Ricks, you know firsthand one of the things that I'm referring to. So that's one issue. The other issue is, and I did not see it in here, I know that you have a fine of, I believe it's $100 per day for violations. Is there a fine in here for not acquiring a permit in the first place?
Thank you. And yes, so let's see, on the fourth page near the bottom, under section 32-13, violations and penalties, it does include on line 44, unpermitted placement of a collection bin as triggering a fine.
And is that fine specified in here?
Let's see.
Because of course, when I think of permits, I think of building permits, and I think about the requirements for permits and what the penalties are for not having a permit or taking out a permit, et cetera, et cetera. And if you do not have a permit and you are working or begin work through this city council, we've increased that fine significantly because of the extensive amount of outlaw contractors we have. We're not speaking about a contractor who has a logistical issue and somehow permit didn't get taken when 99% of the time permits are taken. So
Right.
Is that specified in here?
So I was able to find the correct provision. So let's see, that penalty is actually, it is the same $100 per day. And that's specified section 32-15, which is at the bottom of page 5 and continuing to page 6, that states then that in addition to any other penalties or remedies authorized by the laws of this state or city, any person who violates any provision of this article. So that's relating back to that earlier provision, shall be subject to a penalty of $100 for each violation. And then it includes those same 5 violations, including unpermitted placement of a collection bin.
Good, good. And the last question, actually, there is one other one. In my previous life as chair/vice chair of the Contractors Registration Board, one of the big problems that we had with trying to collect fines or find these outlaw contractors, as I have termed them, was the out-of-state entities. And we solved that problem. Well, I shouldn't say we solved it, but we certainly made progress on that problem by requiring for any out-of-state contractor to be registered or licensed and/or licensed in Rhode Island. They must provide an in-state agent of record for any out-of-state contractor. And Councilman, I'm not sure if I saw that in here or not. If I did, could you just show it to me? And if I didn't, could you consider an amendment that would require that? Because trying to get service, as Councilman Howe indicated, trying to find these out-of-state anybody's is it's a monumental uphill chore, to say the least.
Yes, and that's an excellent point. To address that point, this is back on page 2. Again, near the bottom under the, as part of the application. So if it's a registered 501c3, then they need to include that information as well as the state corporation information, which would be with the Secretary of State. And then similarly, if it's a for-profit, we actually listed it a little more clearly for the for-profits, where they have to submit proof that they are authorized through the Rhode Island Secretary of State and that they are in good standing. But one other item that helps to distinguish this from the probably a far more serious problem with outlaw contractors is that, at least with here, if the organization is simply not paying up the fines and the donation box is sitting there continuing to pose a problem, then the city can repossess the donation bin. And so because they have that expensive object out there, it does give them a little more incentive to comply. And if they don't comply, then the city would be given that power to take the bin. And if for a time the organization is refusing to comply, refusing to pay its fines, then the city can ultimately keep the bin.
So you think that the language you have in here for service and notice of service, et cetera, is sufficient, that you don't need to have an agent of record for an out-of-state entity?
Well, I think that that information should be recorded with the Secretary of State. And I think that to the extent that it might not be in some specific instances, because I know that how it often works with so many of these out-of-state corporations is that they simply, well, there's a couple of ones that I see all the time when I'm looking up the certificates on the Secretary of State site, where they're basically listing, a particular office where they basically have a post office box. At least what distinguishes that a little bit in this scenario is that we have that leverage where at the end of the day, if they're not complying, then we can go to what's section 32-16 on this. And, as I'm giving this one last look over, it looks like another amendment that we would want to make is so that section 32-15, page 5, line 45 reads fines and penalties. And then section 32-16 continues to read abandonment notice of determination. So to get back to the point, before I noticed that little mistake with the titles of that subsection. Let's see, there is a notice provision at the end under 32-16 that if no action is taken by the owner within 10 business days, the city can seek an order from the Warwick Municipal Court to take action on the collection bin, either relocate, reuse, recycle, or discard the bin.
Okay, fair enough. It's certainly something that if it develops a pattern of a problem of serving any of those entities, certainly it's something that could always be changed. Once again, Councilman Rich, Councilman Howe, I think you both did a real good job with this, along with Kyler and everyone else, Al DeCourt, et cetera. It is a problem. I know it's been a problem in my ward. I'm assuming everyone has had a problem with it on and off. And if permissible, Councilman Ricks, I would like to also have my name added as a co-sponsor.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Good job.
Thank you, Councilman Lattiser. Any other questions from members of the council? Any questions from members of the public? Do we have any questions from members of the public? Okay, I will entertain a motion. I believe that we have several amendments coming, so I will let one of you two handle that, Councilman Sinapi or Councilman Corley.
I got at least two of them, so move to amend.
Okay, so should we move it favorable with amendments? How's that sound?
Works for me. Do we want to go over them first?
Yes, please.
So at a minimum, I want to do the one that Jeremy suggested as far as making sure it's clear that the donation bin is outside. I think that perfectly resolves that concern I had. And I also want to make it so that the place where we're mailing to is the registered agent per the Secretary of State's website. That way, even if they are out of state or they try to wiggle out of it. It's like, well, hey, we sent it to where we were supposed to send it. That's on you guys. And I'll leave it to
To
Attorney
those
Walsh
points,
for the language.
I'm very eager to collaborate here with co-counsel. Regarding those points, Councilman, on page 1, line 39, it could work to put a comma after the word closed, as well as the word outdoor, so as to read a closed, comma, outdoor receptacle or container made of, so on and so forth.
Makes sense.
That is satisfactory to the sponsor of the amendment, as well as other members. And to that second point you were making on page 6, line 26, before the period, we could insert a comma, so and say, or a registered agent of the entity as filed with the Rhode Island Secretary of the State. This would allow the department to issue it either directly to them or to their registered agent.
That's better.
And certainly wouldn't preclude them doing both, but it gives them the option if those make sense to the intent of your amendments.
That's perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
I believe we're also going to change the article number. Councilman Ricks, is that correct?
Correct. So let's see, page 1, line 9. So the heading, change that from Article 8 to Article 2. And then also page 1, line 21, change from Article 8 to Article 2. And then also on that same line, add in the language so that it reads, Chapter 32 of the City of Warwick Code of Ordinances is hereby amended by adding Article 2 and amending Chapter 32 to read junk dealers and charitable donation bins.
Okay, and Councilman Lattiser has a question.
Yes, thank you. I'm looking at the first page again, and on line 32, it said the income raised from such fees shall be directed into a fund restricted to the maintenance of the permit program. Is a restricted receipts account, is that permissible now?
We believe that it is. This is something that, excuse me, had come up. And so the idea being that it would remain in a restricted account for the building department as to this particular program. And that way, it's essentially self-funding.
And the building department would be the one tracking that particular account?
Correct.
Okay.
It could
So
also assist by segmenting it out, members of the council. It could assist in any potential challenge to the item, as the fees related to it could be justifiable, or they may need to be adjusted in the future. But it puts forward a clear metric whereby the fees being raised here are associated with the underlying purposes for which the ordinance is speaking to.
Sure. Which, yeah, I've supported.
As you're familiar with some other fees.
I've looked at restricted receipts accounts in the past, and certainly I do have favor for them for their purpose. So it will remain. It's in the building department is what it comes down to.
Totally agreed.
Correct.
And
okay,
correct. And for that matter, as Assistant Solicitor Walsh was saying, not just from that legal perspective, but also from, I see it as also a good government perspective. By having it structured this way, then members of the public, anybody who is interested in this, has confidence that this is not simply going into the general fund as some sort of revenue generating idea. It's really just a matter of paying for the cost of the program itself. Let's see.
I think it's a great idea.
Thank you. And if I may, before we forget, to also amend page 5, line 45. I believe that the title there next to section 32-15 should be amended to additional violations and penalties.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Ricks. Mr. Walsh, can we go over each one of the amendments one more time before we move passage on this or take it for a vote?
Sure. If I could just double check, I think I may have missed one of the sponsor's amendments, but if these are all being incorporated as part of the amendment made, the items that I have before me at the moment are page 1, line 9, striking Roman numeral 8 and inserting Roman numeral 2. On page 1, line 21, making that same amendment. On page 1, line 39, after the word closed, inserting comma and the word outdoor. On page 2, line 2, just a clerical item of cleaning up some inner strike that appears in the text but wouldn't be there normally. Page 5, line 45. Councilman, were you adding to the title or changing the full title to additional violations, semicolon penalties?
Changing the title.
Changing the title. So page 5, line 45, we would strike abandonment, notice of determination, and insert in its place the words additional violations, semicolon penalties.
Correct.
And then on page 6, line 26, after the word article, we would be inserting a comma and the words or a registered agent of the entity as filed with the Rhode Island Secretary of State. Was there another item that you wanted to clarify, Councilman Ricks?
Just one other item. This would be part of the amendment to page 1, line 21, where after we replace Article 8 with Article 2, add the phrase and amend Chapter 32 to read junk dealers and charitable donation bins. More of a housekeeping for the chapter as a whole, since right now the title of the chapter is just junk dealers.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can I ask a quick question?
Sure, Lynn.
Sorry, Councilman. On line 39, page 3, the permittee must provide proof to the city clerk. So is this office now taking on something for the building department again? I just have that.
I would be fine with, I think that may have remained from an earlier version. I would, as part of the amendment, respectfully request Councilman Snappy to, as part of the amendment, strike city clerk and replace that with building department.
Thank you, Councilman.
Makes sense.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thanks.
Okay, back to the Councilman Ricks's suggestion. I think if we amend line 23, where the appearance of Chapter 32 is, insert the normal title, and then insert semicolon, comma, charitable donation bins. I think that would cover what you're seeking to accomplish.
He's giving the thumbs up.
Thank you.
Okay, so it's line 23. We will be inserting the full name of Chapter 32 and adding to the end of it a semicolon with the words charitable donation bins to follow. And then the final item that was just raised by the clerk, page 3, line 39, striking the word city clerk and inserting the building department, the words building department. This amendment is that encompassing all items that you wish to include in one omnibus amendment?
Works for me.
All right, so Councilman Snappi, do you want to move that as amended?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And now we need to move it favorable as amended. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved in second.
Can you
Any-
just make sure we have any public comment prior to the vote on the amended item?
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions from the committee? Any questions from the council? Any questions from the public? Ken, is there any questions from the public? And we will, at the full council meeting, we will go over these amendments again on the floor. They will be read off again. So everybody is aware of all the amendments that we'll be making. So
and I'd add one other item is just a reminder, members of the public, as this is the first passage of ordinance, it will come back up for another review by the members of the council.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Walsh. So it has been moved in second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. It passes 3-0. And that closes the ordinance committee at 6:41.
That's public safety then next, right?
Public safety is up next, and it is eligible to begin. I'll just need one quick minute for a couple notes, but I'll be with you in a second.
All right, I'm gonna pull up my agenda while I'm doing that. And I assume, Tim, are you ready? Yep, there he is.
I'm ready.
So public safety can begin at 6:42 p.m. First thing we have is acceptance of minutes from the November 16th, 2020 meeting. Do we have a motion?
Move for favorable action. Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Next, we have claims. First things first, acceptance of minutes from the November 4th meeting on the claims consent calendar. Do we have a motion?
Move for favorable action. Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. First claim on here is Jeff Sweet. Hit a pothole in Glendale. Recommended approval for 300 from the department. That's not great. So his affidavit, you checked the third box, Attorney Walsh, and he didn't actually say what he's going for, where he's going for it from. So usually when that happened, we checked in with the person and had him say on the record what was going on. I assume we probably have to do that again.
Is the potential claimant here?
No, I think the only person in attendance is a different claimant.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to hold this. And I'll be open to whatever date you feel, if you want the next meeting or maybe in January.
I'd rather do the January just for the sake of time. And I know Lynn's only around for a few more days, so.
And before we have a motion, if I may.
Of course.
So I did notice a couple of other issues here that we may want to address at the same time if we're going to be reaching out to the claimant. So let's see. With the windshield itself, I, on this committee, haven't previously seen a claim for a windshield caused by a pothole. And looking at the pictures that were provided, as long as I'm flipping through this packet, actually, correction, I don't see pictures provided on this one. So I'm a little unclear as to the proof that windshield damage was caused by a pothole, aside from the brief statement that, and I'm going to read it verbatim, cracked windshield. My car has rattling from other holes from all over Warwick. Holes, cracks everywhere. That's the end of the statement in relevant part. So I'm not necessarily saying that pothole damage could not result in a cracked windshield, but that does seem a little bit unusual to me. So that might be an area where we would want to ask the claimant on for some additional information.
Yeah, it's definitely a good call because the description is unclear, to put it gently.
With that, I would ask to be excused as to interrupting Councilman Howe, and I would certainly support seconding the motion to hold to a meeting in January.
Mr. Chairman, I would also recommend the move to January, give everyone a chance to get over the holidays, move into the next year. But thank you.
Councilman Lattiser? You're muted.
Thank you. Just to expand a bit on Councilman Ricks. So this individual is also clearly indicating that my car has rattling from other holes from all over Warwick, holes, cracks, everywhere. I don't know. It begs the question as to, is this particular pothole that he's talking about, is it about a tire issue, a windshield issue, or about hitting potholes all over the city?
Yeah.
It's all over the place. Thank you.
Good points. Does anyone else wish to speak before we entertain a motion to hold?
I have a quick question.
Yep.
Sorry about that. On these claims, because a lot of them seem to be coming up, that with all the missing information, this all comes up from finance. Is there something you want me to advise finance of?
I mean, if you could, that'd be great. I know we've previously, every so often we have these discussions.
I just don't read all the claims when they come up.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's really your burden either to bear.
So I just feel bad that they come up and it's missing all this information.
I mean,
if there was anything you wanted me to reach out with. I'm sorry.
It's our problem to keep an eye out for this, not yours, as far as I'm
No, I know, but if there's something you want me to reach out to finance and have them do something else with the claims, just let me know.
I was thinking, Mr. Chairman, thank you, Lynn. I was thinking, Mr. Chairman, maybe if we come up with a simple checklist that can be handed out. I understand that they get this stuff mailed in. This could be a discussion of another time, but kind of going on what she's saying, I do notice that a lot of times, like, maybe a simple checklist. Do you have this? Do you have that? Do you have this? Just to go with it. But that's, I just got done reading this. I mean, I'm good to hold or I'm good to decline. It's one or the other. There's so much in this that is just questionable, but whatever your pleasure is, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, we've previously, I mean, I could probably just hit forward on an email we had in the past with Harrington sent out for us, but I think a checklist might make it more palatable too and more easy. That way, anyone walking into the role, it could be basically anyone could figure it out. Wouldn't have to be someone who regularly sees these.
Can I just interrupt?
Of course.
Sorry. There is a checklist and it's part of the claim form. If they're coming to you incomplete, we always advise a claimant that they need to provide all that information and that the council reserves the right to do whatever they do if they do not provide all that information.
Gotcha. Yeah, as much as I'd like to continue discussing this, it's definitely a bad idea to open meetings.
Sure.
'Cause it's
I
short
just want to
and
say there is,
out of-
just say there is a checklist. It's on the form and all of that, so.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Councilman Howe, do you want to make that motion, preferably for the second meeting in January?
Motion to hold claimant Jeff Sweet until second meeting of January.
See you trying to speak, Jeremy. You want to do it? There it is. Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have a PCR for that. $119.20, Len, is that right?
That's correct, sorry.
Thank you.
Next, we have the claim of Michael Ashworth.
Yeah, I believe he just said PCR 11921. It's actually PCR 11920.
I heard 20.
Oh, okay, fine.
Now you got me doubting myself. It is 20, right?
Yes.
All right.
Correct, 20.
Claim of Michael Ashworth hit a pothole on Harding Road. Yeah, okay, yeah, no, that's probably accurate. Anyone who's driven around Harding Road knows that. Recommended approval of 298.70. Affidavit looks like it's correct. And he did provide pictures of the pothole. Oh yeah, hey, Michael Ashworth, this might have been the person that posted it online. There was a particularly bad pothole very briefly on Harding Road, which pretty much if you hit it, you were going to lose a part of your car one way or another. I'm guessing he hit that one. Yep, it's the guy who blew out his tire. I know this one. So I know far more about this than I want to. I'm going to move for approval, but obviously first, any questions or comments from the committee?
I hate to be the rain on the parade. As much as I think that for this type of vehicle, the invoice appears to be certainly the amount that was actually paid, and it seems to be a reasonable amount given the other estimates. I would point out that included was the lower estimate from Walmart of $224.58. However, that did not include the installation and the alignment. I noticed that not specifically included in terms of a precise price from Walmart, but there is an indication that the installation is between $15 and $25 per tire. So if we were to go with the lowest estimate on that, that would raise it to $239.58. And I think that under our procedure, I know that I would be comfortable with passing favorable action in that amount. However, that does not necessarily compensate him for the actual cost, especially as that does not include the cost of the alignment. So I would request that at the pleasure of the chair, perhaps we could pass this at the amount of $239.58, or alternatively, give the claimant an opportunity to present additional evidence or specifically an additional couple of estimates on the cost of alignment so that we would be able to review that and potentially give him that greater amount of compensation.
No, that makes sense. We've done that for at least 2 or 3 others by my recollection, where we let them know, look, we can do it at the lower amount, or you can get a better, more detailed estimate so that we don't have to do that. Councilman Howe?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I don't want to get too deep in the woods in this. I understand and respect what the conversation is. However, we've always done it, and you know, you know me, I'm all about opening the mind and looking at other ways to do it, but we've filed on claims where the 3 of us have said, well, the charter says it is the lowest amount, and we've never given those people the second opportunity to do it. And I just feel I want to stick to to the integrity of what we've been doing for the time, where the charter does clearly state we would give the least of the three estimates as the amount we would award if the award is granted. I understand the department recommended payment of the 298, but the department doesn't make the decisions we make here. That is a department recommendation. That is a recommendation. It is our responsibility on the charter, and the charter says the lowest amount. I would be all for the 224.58, and we've done that with residents and non-residents such as this one. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I know at least 2 or 3 claimants that I personally have called after we held it so that they could get a estimate that more reflected actually what they did, aka labor. Labor is pretty much the thing that everyone always forgets to do on their estimates. And I'm perfectly comfortable continuing to do it that way, given that I know there's a few that we've done that way. You're probably right that they might be ones that we didn't do that way. Shame on me for not realizing it if that's the case. But I'd still like to give people the opportunity when I do remember, at least, I'd like to give them the chance to do that. Hello, Council President.
How are you? Who's going to chime in on this when you get a chance?
Feel free.
So historically, there's a weighting, if you will, the good against the bad. Seems like a lot of work for people to get up to a $300 claim on a pothole, which always bothered me. But then again, what had happened many years ago, Councilwoman Travis will probably remember, it was probably a good 10 or 15 years ago, we had one individual that came in and gave one bid. It was really high for one tire. And then there was some evidence out there, although we couldn't prove it, that there was some sort of kickback going on between the body shop or the repair shop and the individual that came in with the high estimate. So it really seems burdensome to residents and constituents to go get 3 estimates. And the other point that I was going to bring up is I agree with you, Councilman Sinapi, about the condition of Harding Road. It's awful. It gets washed out. It looks like they've done some cuts over there, so they're going to do some paving, which is great. I know a lot of people are excited about that. It's long overdue. And what I would say is, and what I would analogize to for Councilman Gephardt is the same is true with Major Potter Road. And we had this at the last council meeting for the person who fortuitously had there was a company that was doing work on Route 2 putting in gas mains. And the assumption was made, knowing the condition of that road for 20 years, that one of those potholes was somehow related to the construction work, which that road has been awful for 20 years. And actually a portion of it just got repaved this year. So I support giving the people what they deserve, and I would support you in this case, Councilman Sinapi. But I do think that as you did in this case, we should apply the same standards of firsthand knowledge about the condition of roadways, and especially the condition of that one in Major Potter Road, that we don't make people chase other third parties on $300 claims that, as you know, the burden of proof would be on the resident to show that the construction company caused that pothole in the roadway, which would be a slim to none chance. And I just raised that because every year there's going into the new council session, there's a kumbaya attitude among everybody. And I've been listening tonight, and it sounds good. It sounds great. And that's always a good thing. Just take that into consideration when you guys are looking at other issues on these $300 claims. And unfortunately, I really think that it's burdensome to the residents, but at the same time, it's necessary to prevent what had happened in the future. And that's it. Thank you.
That makes sense. We might want to consider some sort of change down the road when it comes to the estimates and labor, because that's almost always the thing that bogs everything up, the labor costs not being in the estimates. The other estimates, obviously, we need them in at least one, hopefully the invoice. And it was, yeah, the burden is definitely not a low one. It was even worse when they were forced to attend in person. They sit for hours, potentially not even get heard. I'm glad we changed that at least, but would not hurt to potentially look into other changes. Councilman Lattiser?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I don't need to tell everyone that, potholes have been a major issue with me over the last couple of years. You're all well aware of that. And I agree with Councilman Sinapa. Actually, I agree with all of you. And when you look back at the amount of issues we've had as a result of these potholes, and in some cases, potholes just being ignored and not being filled for a very long time. And then we're putting the citizens through this onerous process of getting 3 estimates and forcing them to go with the lowest estimate in many cases as a result of potholes being ignored. That is just terrible. And today, I don't think anyone would argue the fact that it's not a lot of money for a tire and a rim for $300. And when you hit some of these potholes, it's not unreasonable to say that your front end has been knocked out of line and perhaps even further damage. So, yeah, I agree with everyone's comments. I think that this is definitely something that needs to be revisited. What the amount of the award is capped at perhaps need to be revisited. And I, for one, am looking forward to a lot more attention being given to the pothole conditions that we have throughout this city going forward. I'm quite confident that we'll see some improvement in that. But in the meantime, you hit some of these potholes, $300 is not a lot of money anymore today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from members of the committee or the council? Seeing none, we can entertain a motion.
Move to hold to January 20.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Well, that concludes the
Can you move
consent.
the PCR on that one? Sorry.
Oh, no worries.
PCR 120, 20.
Mr. Chairman, there's one more item.
On the consent calendar?
I believe so.
Mary,
Not on the-
again.
I have
Yeah.
3 items on mine for,
On your consent calendar? The other one is on the public safety agenda.
Okay.
The other claim?
I do.
Hmm?
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
That was PCR 121.
No, 120, 20.
2020.
PCR 120, 20.
Got it.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to the regular docket. For the public safety, we have resolution relative to claims. I pronounced it correctly earlier today. I'm going to mess it up. Mark Houlet, I think it is, and I know he's on the line. Can we make it so that he's able to speak, please?
You can unmute now.
Hello?
Howdy.
Hi.
Thank you for waiting.
I was curious to know if I would have a chance to give you guys some additional information regarding my claim.
Not only would you have a chance, that's actually exactly what we're looking for. Because then just so we'll update you first, that way you know what's going on. The department had already recommended denying your claim on the basis that they said the damage occurred during a windstorm event. And further at it, it's not negligence on our part, rather that it's an act of God. And then there were other issues as well. Specifically, your affidavit has a problem, but I suppose there's no reason to go into that until we figure out the first part. So obviously the department says it's not their fault, or rather the city's fault. Your description says 50-mile-an-hour wind knocked a limb off a city tree, and then it fell and damaged your property. So what can you tell us?
Yeah, so again, when I wrote my claim, it was in the pre-COVID context, and I'm not saying it was anybody's fault. I'm just I was under the assumption I was going to have a chance at a hearing that I would present it in person. So here I am. I'm just going to sum it up for you. It's so the additional information I wanted to share with you guys is I had taken actions about the tree because there was a progressive leaning. It's pretty much an old tree, the city tree in question, and me and my neighbor across the street were both concerned about an eventual accident that was waiting to happen. We both took actions as far as placing calls to the city, and that we were afraid that eventually there were limbs that were gonna fall. And unfortunately, there were no actions that got substantiated from our phone calls to the city about what we thought was an accident that was waiting to happen. So after the incident, it got taken down, I believe, in March. Like, the accident happened on January 12th, 2020, and I believe it was somewhere in March or April that Highway Division came in and finally took the rest of the tree down, because there were several limbs to that tree that were pretty much progressively leaning. So finally, the city just decided to finally take it down. But unfortunately, we felt that it took an incident to happen to take the whole tree down.
So I'm looking at the tree in question actually on Google Maps, and it's an old picture. It's back from 2011, and even then, it's not looking great. That tree is heavily leaning, and I'm guessing it got worse, as you mentioned.
Yeah, my neighbor I'm on 101 Louisiana. My neighbor is on 96 Louisiana, and he had serious concern about his roof. He had placed calls to the city about this, and my calls were about the fear that some limbs that progressively were leaning would eventually fall on my property and damage part of my property, like it did on January 12th.
Yeah, so it's not simply a random tree on city property fell. It's more, you gave notice that there was an issue, not only you, but your neighbor on more than one occasion. Nothing was done, and eventually what you expected might happen happened, right?
Correct.
And how much in total did it cost to replace or fix everything?
It's $700 for the fence, for a section of my vinyl fence. There's also 2 shrubs at the time. The estimate, and again, I'm going by the lowest estimate. The 2 shrubs that got damaged, the estimate for those shrubs were $725. So I would consider, so the 2 on my claim, I added up those 2 items, the shrubs and the fence, which totaled $1,425. But if I had to say, if you cannot approve both repair, if I had the choice, in other words, between the 2, I would say the fence. It's mostly because I have a dog who that I'm trying to keep in my yard and make sure he doesn't escape. I've been putting temporary panels, but sometimes with the wind, and it's not always easy to keep the panel in place. Especially for my dog, and I don't want to get into trouble with the city about my dog being at large. I have unfortunately had my dog escaping twice. So yeah, that I would say if I had to, if you had to prioritize the two repairs, I would say the fence to me would be the most important.
All right, and I suppose before we do the affidavit part, does any other members of the committee have any questions?
I did, Mr. Chairman. I believe when we talked about this, one of the concerns that was brought up was putting in the claim and the question of whether we can go above the amount of 300, number one. Number two, why wasn't the claim submitted through the trust?
So it's just under the amount, if I'm not mistaken, when we brought that up. I think it's at least 1,500, if not 2,000 for the cutoff. And the
Okay,
300 cap is for potholes.
okay. And, all right. And the trust being that it's being deemed, or I understand, I'm not questioning I want to make sure that we're clarified. So all this right here, what we're speaking about, would it be beneficial and more, would it be more viable for the claimant to go through the trust or to continue on this path?
I'm seeing that head shaking from Attorney Walsh.
My understanding, and I know Lynn Proctor, I think, updated us at the last meeting, is that threshold for referrals to the trust is 2,500. And so the question that comes back to you as members of the council is really to decide whether the city breached a duty that was the actual approximate cause of the damages here. So it's a city's negligence claim that he's asserting, and as the chairman noted, the 300 cap is only applicable per state law for potholes.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Councilman Ricks, and then we'll go to Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you. So one thing that I was confused about is that the $700 for the estimate from United Fence, it referred to one section, and then looking at the estimate from Lowe's, I'm seeing that it references 56 feet of fencing. So I wasn't sure the exact area that we were talking about, if it was one, say, 6 foot or 8 foot section, or if we were talking about a 56-foot section.
It's only the one section. It's only for one section that got damaged. I'm not sure. I realize and I understand that the Lowe's estimate was, I'm trying to find the right word. It's kind of like a mess in other words, for lack of a better term. I feel like they did not understand what I was looking for. I was looking for only one section, and I'm thinking there was some kind of disconnect between what I was looking for, and they still sent me that estimate. And the lady at the finance department told me that that's fine. I'll take it because I need more than one estimate. And I was like, that's fine. I said, if the council could understand or could extrapolate to one section, it's just that it was explained to me by the Low staff that it would be they could only make an estimate for the whole. If they were redoing the whole, and if they have to come for only one section, then they would extrapolate.
Yeah, they're looking for more business, I'm sure.
But that's probably it, yeah. But the person in finance, I believe it's Margie, her name, she had told me that's fine. Just give it to me and we'll put it with your claim.
Councilman Lattiser.
Yes, thank you. I'm pretty sympathetic to this gentleman's claim in his position. And I can say for certain that I understand about these tree issues because I've experienced them firsthand. I also have a particular constituent, who both that constituent and myself and several others for over a year had been requesting that these damaged or these dead trees be taken down. I started also to put notice to the city about the potential for property damage and personal injury because of these trees. And limbs did come down. And the city did ignore taking down one of these monster trees for a year. And eventually, more of the tree came down and more damage was caused. So I'm pretty sympathetic to Mr. Hool and his claim and his frustration about asking and requesting for tree maintenance to be done. And I understand that there's only so much tree service that one tree warden can provide. But, you know, when this type of time goes by, I think, and damage occurs, then you know what? You got to pay the bill. I think my personal opinion is feeling his pain, that I would support him being compensated for the damage of his fence of $700 and also the cost of replacing his shrubberies in the amount of $725. This certainly isn't his fault. I don't buy the act of God after the powers to be had been notified many times about the danger being posed by this tree. So I, for one, would support compensating him for those two items in the amount of $1,425. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Yeah, I feel similarly, although we might have an issue with the estimates for the trees. Councilman Ricks?
Thank you. This is one of those situations where, when it often comes up in Ward 2, I ask my constituents to document it if at all possible. Oftentimes I'll go out there, snap a few photos and submit a request by email as well, because when the phone calls are made, it becomes harder to track some of these issues. If this sort of situation unfortunately happens before the tree warden gets out there and solves the problem. But I would agree with my colleagues, including Councilman Lattiser and Councilman Howe, on this, that you know, it certainly seems credible that these phone calls were made. As Chairman Snappy pointed out, looking at the Google Street View, the tree was leaning back in 2011. Speaking with Mr. Houle, or Hool, I'm sorry that I'm butchering your name.
Houle is fine.
Hool, thank you.
Houle.
Houle, thank you. I'm sorry about that.
Thank you.
Well, Mr. Houle, you seem credible to me, and this is certainly not the first time that people have called up the city and tried to get issues relating to trees taken care of before there's damage done. So while it would be preferable to have some images that were sent in to the city by email or the like, I don't think that that's something that we've ever actually required in circumstances like this, and I don't see it as appropriate to start requiring it here and now. So I would be comfortable with approving for the $700 for the estimate from United Fence. And my suggestion on this to the committee, and the city council solicitor can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that a way that we can proceed with this so that Mr. Houle gets that needed funding quickly after this long delay with the hearing of this claim, and also preserve his right as to being able to present 3 estimates for the replacement of those 2 shrubs, would be, I'm going to suggest that we approve the claim and at the same time assign a PCR number so that it's not necessary for that remaining portion of the claim to be resubmitted all over again, but instead it could be amended a little later if Mr. Houle would like to come up with a couple of other estimates for the replacement shrubs.
That would be ideal, but is that possible, Attorney Walsh?
I think we can address, each potential item here, either as a whole, I would caution against, but I think there's a related item that we probably need to clean up prior to getting to answering that question.
Very true. The affidavit.
And so I would reserve that until after we figure out the answers to the other questions.
That's a good point. Well, we'll do Councilman Howe first.
Thank you. Just very quickly, it says right here on the affidavit that we will be speaking about, page 2, it says the request reimbursement of the amount of $1,425. Am I correct in identifying that that's the amount that the claimant is requesting still?
That's what he testified to before, yeah.
Okay, I'm fine with that. Thank you.
So, Mr. Houle, on the actual affidavit, you checked off the box that says you're intending to or will be seeking compensation from other sources. Did you in fact do that?
Oh, it's that was a confusing part in the application. The way it was explained to me in the finance department is that the box that I checked was I have the application right in front of me, and I'm trying to get back to what I remember she explained to me. It was something like if the claim gets denied, then I would seek from my homeowner insurance or something like that. But then I would have the intent to seek. But it's like the way she explained it to me, it's like that I would not do any form of compensation search until I hear from the city first, basically. So I did not, in other words, I did not seek any other form of compensation.
And should this council provide the $1,425, you would not be seeking any additional compensation after that, correct?
Correct.
And Attorney Walsh, is there anything else we want to make sure to get on the record?
I would just, I mean, in the age of these Zooms and things, normally we would have the claimant more formally attest to these things. So I would just ask if the council could indulge for me to be able to walk through and have this claimant verbally attest to a few of these items on the affidavit in order to restate it.
Absolutely.
And would the clerk swear him in?
Houle, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? To help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Mr. Houle, if you could state your name and spell it for the record, please.
Sure. Mark, M-A-R-C, Houle, H-O-U-L-E.
And having been duly sworn and deposed, you restate the items that are in your affidavit with the exception of changing the checking of the box from the third item to the first item, which would indicate that you have not sought compensation, nor will you at any time seek compensation from any source, including but not limited to any insurance company, other than the city of Warwick for any loss arising from the above described incident, and the rest isn't pertinent as it pertains to potholes. But do you so agree and indicate that is your intention to make such change to your affidavit?
Just so I'm clear, it's in the eventuality that I would receive compensation from the city, right?
This would state that should you receive compensation from the city, you will not seek any other compensation.
That's correct. Okay. Yes, I would want to change it for this box. Correct.
Okay, so as Mr. Chairman, as it pertains to the affidavit and the updating of said paperwork, I think we could proceed on the matter. I would just note that the determination of the amounts and the timeliness, how urgent of a matter could it be as it relates to potentially resolving this all in one item? Could we have estimates before the next meeting perhaps and be able to do in one shot so as not to divide the item.
Would dividing the item be such a lift that it's not worth it? I don't know what it entails, truthfully. I haven't seen it done.
I mean, I would defer to the administration for process aspects of this. From a legal standpoint, I'm not aware of something that would limit us from taking this as an A and a B type of approach. I'm just thinking I would defer logistically to the administration for process purposes.
I mean, in my head, what makes sense is that we could approve the 700 for the fence and he basically reapply for the 725. So at least the time sensitive one gets done. But I would prefer to not have to do that if possible. It seems like a tedious, needless step. Councilman Lattiser? You're muted.
This is, thank you. This is a claim, as everyone can tell, has been going on since January 1st. It's been almost a year. Realize it's not any doings of this council and that there were various delays that incurred in this, but nonetheless, it's over a year. We've heard testimony, not just from the claimant, but from our colleagues as well as myself, that these tree issues, they have been an issue. They've been a significant issue, and notice after notice after notice has been given. And for whatever reason, these responsibilities of at least removing these dangerous sections of these trees has not been fulfilled. It just seems unreasonable to me to continue to put, in this case, Mr. Houlet, through the motions of getting another 2 bids for something that certainly was not his fault. He had made numerous requests to get this down, and it wasn't. Getting another couple of bids, and with our calendar, et cetera, this could drag on for another couple of months. It seems unreasonable to me to make any person go through these type of motions. So I just wanted to put that on the record, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Attorney Walsh, I'm still unclear as to how we go about splitting it up.
In my years of experience, we've never done so. It doesn't necessarily address the complete possibility of doing such, but I think if we can proceed in a comprehensive whole manner, and perhaps if the council were of interest, the claimant could submit the supplementary items as soon as possible, and that could be included in your record if it were to be held to the next meeting, whereby you may or may not require the claimant to further appear as you conclude the process.
Yeah, Mr. Houlet, just I'm going to walk you through a hypothetical and you let me know if it's acceptable. Rather than inventing a process here on the spot, which may or may not cause problems for you and for us down the line, would it cause any issue if instead we had to get 2 additional estimates for the trees? And that way, because we require 3 estimates, and while you got them for the fence, you did not get them for the trees. And you wouldn't have to come back. You wouldn't have to call in again. Once you submit the estimates at our next meeting, we would simply presumably approve based on that, unless you like hand wrote the estimate on your own or something silly.
I could possibly get 2 more estimates if that's what, I mean, I understand the process, so I would be okay with agreeing with that. And I'm sorry, it's probably a misunderstanding between me and the staff in the finance department. I was under the assumption when I submitted my claim that it was acceptable. So if it wasn't, I'm sorry about the lack of, I'm not sure if that's considered a lack of compliance to the claim.
No,
But I
no
can-
worries. No reason to apologize. Yeah,
Okay,
you did more than most people, so it's appreciated.
Okay.
We're
Yeah,
just
I
trying to
would
make
be
sure we
agreeable.
compensate you correctly.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I would be agreeable to. So you're saying the first estimate for the trees is gonna stay on record and I would just have to add up to that two additional claims. I mean, two additional estimates, right?
Yeah, so no additional affidavit or anything crazy like that. Simply two additional estimates for the trees, which you send in to wherever you sent the first stuff, I assume the finance department.
That's good. That sounds good to me. Yep, that's acceptable to me.
Sorry, Mr. Houlet, this is Lynn Prodger. I'm the acting finance director.
Hi, Lynn.
I'd like to personally help you. Can
I'm
I give you my direct extension so you can call me and I'll expedite everything for you?
Oh, absolutely. Sure.
It's 921-9642, all right?
9642. So as soon as I get the two additional estimates, I can just give you a call and to expedite the process.
And I will try and get it out as fast as possible for you, all right?
Okay, thank you so much. I really appreciate it,
No
Mrs.
problem.
Roger. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Given what we just discussed, I think we'll hold it to the first meeting in January. And that one's actually coming up quicker than at least I realized, but that should give them time to get the estimates and they'll be able to get everything squared away. Does anyone else want to chime in first? Attorney Walsh?
I just wasn't sure if we were gonna attempt it to perhaps put it on the December calendar. If it were to get done by then, you would preserve your option to punt it over again. Should that, if timeliness is of concern, the December 21st meeting.
You're absolutely right. It went right over my head that we have another December meeting. So I'm glad you said that. So yeah, it's the next December meeting. Anyone have any issues with that or any comments or questions? All right, seeing none.
Sorry, it's Lynn again. There's no time to get them on the 21st meeting. Everything would be due to you by the end of this week. It's just not. I just want to set the expectation. I'll do everything I can to get it done, but on the 21st, I'm pretty skeptical.
So just a quick thing, as long as the estimates are delivered to anybody really, and that we have them for the meeting, whether they be emailed on that day or not, I don't see a problem because the item would still be noticed properly as far as it's his claim. So the fact that the two estimates are provided to us day of doesn't seem problematic to me. I mean, if one of the attorneys want to correct me if I'm mistaken, feel free, but I think that works.
Okay, sorry.
Excuse me, if I may, I would like just like to add, I could do my best to get the two estimates by then. It would be preferable if I could get it done by the 21st. I just cannot guarantee the availability of different contractors to make an estimate, to produce an estimate, but I can definitely do my best to make it work.
Yeah, and just to be clear, worst case scenario, you just let the finance department or myself, because you have my contact information from earlier today, you let us know that, hey, I'd like more time and we'll just hold it. That's not a problem. But also with the estimates, you don't have to go crazy. There's sometimes people just go online and they'll look up, like for instance, if these trees were of a certain type and a certain height, you could go online and look at it, somebody that sells them and price it out and say, look, it's going to cost me this much to get the trees from them. Just my only caution to that at the same time is that be careful because labor often is not included with that. I don't want you to shortchange yourself. So it might end up being that your best bet is with contractors, but it also might end up being a possibility where you get them online too.
Okay.
So whatever works for you. People have just printed out like shopping carts, quote unquote, from like Walmart, the online aspect of it, and that was enough. So whatever works.
Okay, understood.
Again, anyone else have any comments or questions?
The motion will be to hold until December 21st.
Preferably, yes.
Okay. Motion to hold till December 21st meeting.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Houlet, for not only participating, but for sticking around so long to do so.
Just a quick question, if I may again, so are we holding also the fence until the December 21st meeting, the fence part of the claim?
Yes, it's all combined in one. Is
Correct,
that,
okay.
is that problematic or no?
No, I could live with that.
All right, just wanted to make sure.
Okay.
And thank you again. All right, next we have PCR 95-20, resolution in regards to erecting stop signs on the secondary roadways of Grimshaw Place, Hackman Place, Worth Street, Crystal Drive, and Lockwood Street. Councilman Lattiser, it's not drafted.
Hold till the second meeting in January, January 20th.
So the sponsor to hold to the second meeting in January, January 20th.
Second.
Move that.
Move to hold the correction, PCR 95-20 to the second meeting in January, January 20th.
Second that motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have PCO 21-20, ordinance in regards to erecting no parking signs on Naples Avenue in front of the Starbucks lot facing westbound. This is first passage. It's me. This has a traffic study accompanying it in response to some complaints from constituents regarding the recent development over there. Not necessarily the business owners, but people parking where they probably shouldn't be and narrowing the roadway to the point where it became unsafe. Not just the roadway itself, but people turning out of the new business. So this is hopefully going to go in and temper that. And then based on how this works out, we're going to see if we need to make further changes down the line, but this is the first step pretty much. Any questions or comments from members of the committee? Any questions or comments from members of the council? Questions or comments from members of the public? Does not look like it. None.
To approve for first passage, PCO 21-20.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have PCO 22-20, ordinance in regards to erecting no parking signs for Arnold Ave and Hall Street. This is Council President Marola, and this is first passage.
Yeah, so that's supported by a traffic study. And so I'd ask for favorable action.
Perfect. Any questions or comments from members of the committee? Any questions or comments from members of the council? Any questions or comments from members of the public? Any questions or comments from members of the public?
Move for favorable action on PCO 22-20.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have PCR 105-20, resolution in regards to erecting stop signs on Suburban Parkway. Councilman Travis?
Yes,
Councilwoman Wolf.
yes. This is accompanied by a traffic study. The police department did a thorough checkup on it. This is the cross street from Oakland Beach Avenue as they're entering the beach area. And I move favorable action possible.
And I may have missed it. I presume it's backed up by a traffic study?
Yes, that's what I said at the beginning.
All right, figured I missed it. Any questions from members of the committee? Any questions from members of the council? Any questions from members of the public? Any questions from members of the public?
Move favorable action on PCR 105-20.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
PCR 106-20, resolution in regards to erecting a four-way stop sign on Kenyon Avenue. This is me again. It's backed up by a traffic study. It's fairly straightforward. It's used as commonly used as a cut-through street for Main Ave and Post Road / Jefferson Boulevard. So as you can imagine, it gets a fair amount of traffic from time to time. I request favorable action. Any questions from members of the committee? Any questions from members of the council? Any questions from members of the public? Any questions from members of the public?
Move favorable action on PCR 106-20.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And PCR 114-20, resolution in regards to erecting /symbol top signs, stop signs on the eastbound and westbound of Petaconsett Avenue where it intersects with Budlong Avenue. Councilman Ricks?
Yes, obviously that should read stop signs. So I'm not sure if any amendment is actually needed on that, but this is supported by a traffic study. I would move favorable action.
Yeah, I saw the head shaking from Attorney Walsh. There's just a Scrivener's error, so that's easily fixed. Any questions or comments from members of the committee? Any questions or comments from members of the council? Any questions or comments from members of the public? Any questions or comments from members of the public?
Move favorable action on PCR 114-20.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Lynn, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that finally concludes public safety.
That's correct.
Was mine longer than finance? Be honest.
Tonight, I think it was
Oof. Grave dishonor.
7:41.
So there you go.
Next up is the Intergovernmental Committee, Chairman Corley, Councilman Howe, Councilman McElroy, and we are in order to begin.
Okay, this is the Intergovernmental Committee meeting beginning at 7:41. The first item on the agenda, I believe, is the acceptance of minutes from the November 4th meeting. Can't hear you, Mr. Howe. Oh, are you speaking?
I did. I apologize. Move favorable action.
Okay, Jim, can you give us thumbs up or unmute? Okay. Okay, there's been a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 The first thing I believe on the calendar is PCO -9-20, an ordinance in regard, no, never mind.
Mr. Chairman, it's
I was reading
PCR
from the wrong one.
Mr. Chairman, PCR 196-19, a resolution to the General Assembly for additional
Yes.
funding for Warwick Public Schools. Council President Marola. It is not drafted.
Thank you. What would you like to do, Council President?
I'd like to get more money for the schools. I don't know if that's going to work though. Speaking of which, I believe that, and Kayla can probably fill us in on that. I believe that that's why Attorney Conley couldn't be with us tonight, because the Senate was finally voting on those appropriations, or at least his committee was, to the cities and towns. So I just bring that to everybody's attention because that's going to be interesting considering the car tax. Why don't we just hold that 1 week, and if not, I might pass that off to Councilman Gephardt to see if you folks couldn't pass something for the upcoming year, in particular because of that Pathways program that we went to on that presentation last year. You know, in essence, we're paying, for example, when kids go to North Kingstown, if it costs North Kingstown $17,000 and it costs us $20 to educate a student, we're giving them $20 and they're getting a windfall of $3,000. So I'd like to see that in there, and I'd also like to see the state aid to education formula re-examined also. It's funny if you look at that over the years. I think that if it was based on per kid, it was something like $30 or $40 million more that would come to the city. I would take a quarter of that just to help. But in any event, I would request that we hold it 1 week and then go from there. Thank you.
Per request of the sponsor, hold PCR 196-19 till the next December 21st meeting.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Uh, And
Item number 2, Mr. Chairman, is PCR 115-20.
you just beat me. I got it.
Okay.
Resolution to the Kent County Water Authority and the Public Utilities Commission asking for an investigation in regards to the significant water rate increase. This is from Council President Marola.
Hold on one sec. I don't know if I saw. I know what it's about. Second. Okay. Aye. Thank you.
Yes, Councilman McAllister, can you help us?
Sure, thank you very much, and thank you to the council president for bringing this forward. In wards 7, 8, and 9, we have Kent County water in our sections, and we've been receiving a number of calls from ratepayers about these large bills that have come, sometimes double and triple the bills. So the council president took the lead and drafted this to look into this. There's a number of state senators and state reps that are looking into this as well. I know Councilman Sinapi and I watched the latest Kent County Water Board meeting, and I was a little concerned of their kind of, they were very defensive that they were getting calls on this. And I would like to stress that, you know, they received over 447 complaints into the office. People that took the time, they saw the water bill, they had major concerns and called the office. One of the things that I didn't really appreciate is our friends on the Water Authority went around the room and they said, well, how many calls did you receive? And someone said 1. Another person said, the next one I get will be the first one I get. With all due respect to our friends on the water board, no one knows who's on the Water Board Authority. I actually looked it up to see who was on there. And while your names are listed, no, your contact information is. So that is not a good way to gauge what the ratepayers are thinking. A very good way to gauge is the 447 complaints that you received at this last billing. So there's a number of things that they're looking into. They have a new meters that are picking up on some type of a leak. Sometimes there's leaks that the old meters weren't picking up. Not everyone has these meters yet, but their goal is to get everyone with their meters. One of the things they spoke about, which I think is encouraging, is maybe switching over to monthly billing. Because if you do have a leak, and they used an example of if you have a leak in your toilet and you don't know about it, and you don't get billed for 120 days, that's 120 days of that leak going through and you know, the meters running on these things. So at least with a monthly bill, you'll find out within 30 days, hey, why is this spiking all of a sudden? I also would encourage the Water Board Authority to maybe do some proactive work in looking at some of these bills, seeing if there is an issue, like why all of a sudden this individual who's lived in the same place for 20 years, why is their bill skyrocketing this last quarter or this last billing period? Maybe it is because of a leak. So maybe we can be proactive and go out there on that. So I really commend the council president for taking the lead on this and putting this forward. I know there's a number of senators that are calling on this as well. It does, you know, participating and watching the Kent County Water Authority. You know, they did break down these bills. When people called, they broke it down. They explained the reasons, and I understand that. And a lot of them, the majority of them, they were justified. But here's the thing: they are on the board. They're there to look out for the ratepayer. So they shouldn't be defensive when they're getting these calls. They should not be putting the burden on the ratepayer who is upset because we're in the middle of a crisis here and they're getting a huge bill all of a sudden. So I just ask that they work with them, that they sit down, maybe try to be a little more proactive. I do like the idea if they are trying to upgrade their meter readings so they get more accurate readings. But I want to make sure that they're doing it, and being proactive. Again, sometimes they don't receive bills and it's of 120 days pass. And if you have a leak, 120 days, that leak is going, you're having a huge thing. How is a ratepayer supposed to know that there's a leak, within their pipes? They don't know. If they're not seeing the leak, it's going to keep running. So I commend this. I think it's very important discussion to have. I understand that the board members are doing everything they can. I just would like to just point out to them, serve the ratepayers. You were there to work on behalf of the ratepayers. We don't need to be defensive, but when you do get complaints, you need to reach out to these ratepayers. You are there for them. And again, I thank the council president for moving this forward.
Just to follow up on Councilman McAllister said, I think the worst example is in Councilman Sinapi's ward over at Centerville Glen on Centerville Road. They're claiming that development used 37.58 truckloads of water in 90 days. Or that's 4,843 gallons per day. Divided by 9 units means that they were using 538 gallons per unit, which is really humanly impossible. So either they're defective meters or they're getting backflow or there's a problem with the billing system. I don't know. I'm hoping that the PUC gets involved. I believe they are. And they're suggesting that I think they have an investigator on it, which would be very, very helpful. And I would encourage the Kent County Water Authority to go after, and hopefully there's a performance bond, but to go after the manufacturer of those meters. And it might be also the distributor. The developer of that complex had estimated that the cost for the complex would be $3,000 a year. The bill for the quarter was $4,500. So it was $18,000, or almost 6 times as much as what was estimated for the year. Last year's usage for the same period of time was 1,716 gallons per day, which equals about 190 gallons per unit, not 538 gallons per unit. So it's a real problem. And I think a lot of times when you look at people that are in part-time positions, I always laugh because they say council members are in part-time positions, but you know how much time we all put in. But they rely on the people at the Water Authority to give them accurate information. And this just does not jive with anything that could be humanly possible for consumption. And that's just one, as Councilman McAllister pointed out, example of a bill. I mean, he mentioned there's 473 complaints. And you can imagine the amount of money that adds up to in the middle of a pandemic where people haven't been able to work and some people are still relying on unemployment to get a bill that much higher. Not to mention Kent County's rates are significantly higher than Warwick's rates, almost double the last time I checked. So it really presents a problem, and I don't know how people can afford it. And many people are trying to pay it under protests, but and getting no answers. It's like David against Goliath. But I appreciate Councilman McAllister's comments. Thank you.
Chairman, if I may. You're muted, Chairman. Chairman Corley, you're muted.
My answer was yes.
All right, thank you. Sorry, I didn't want to assume.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, Council President Marola, for docketing this and Attorney Pecchia for drafting it up. This was eye-opening sitting in on this meeting because Councilman McAllister hit the nail on the head as far as being defensive. It was a little concerning to listen to the board acknowledge a series of either practices or software that they agreed, yeah, that actually probably is contributing to this problem, but it's not our fault, over and over and over again. In fact, they simply blamed politicians for the problem at hand, which was both shocking and concerning. I was glad to hear that they're looking into fixing the processes, or at least some of them. Some of them they didn't mention fixing, though. There's new software apparently classified, what used to classify things as leaks now classifies it simply as usage, which is a little worrisome given that they said, oh, don't worry, most of these increased costs were from usage. It's like, well, were those things that are actually leaks that your software is misclassifying now? So that's definitely a concern. And just the general tenor of the meeting, unfortunately, it's stuck with me. I'm not terribly pleased. Hopefully it'll be different going forward. I know they are perturbed that they got so many complaints, but it's kind of on them. When we get a lot of complaints versus one thing or another, we don't turn around and blame the public. That's just not how it works. I don't know why it seems to be different there, but hopefully it's a lesson learned on their part and it'll be different going forward. And I know that the PUC and us will be hopefully looking into them.
Anyone else wish to be heard on the proposed resolution? Does anyone from the public want to be heard concerning this? I don't even know if there's anyone on from the public, but I have not been informed otherwise. So does someone want to?
Move favorable action on PCR 115-20.
Okay, it's been moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. I've asked the public and now we just need to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, it's 3-0. And I believe that is the last item on the intergovernmental.
That does conclude the intergovernmental committee.
Okay, we close at 7:58.
That leaves us the Public Properties, Land Use Committee and Community Affairs. Chairman Ricks, Councilman Corley, Councilman McElroy is in order to proceed.
Okay, everyone here? All right. The time is 7:58 p.m. The Public Properties, Land Use Committee and Community Affairs comes to order. First up, we have acceptance of the minutes from November 16, 2020. Any comment from members of this committee? Any comment from members of the council? Any comment from members of the public? Seeing none, can we have a motion?
Move acceptance.
Seeing none, can we have a motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, first item on the agenda, PCO 30-19. This is Councilman Snappy. Ordinance involving state law regarding unutilized commercial property. As it's not drafted, when would you prefer to have it held?
This actually should be ready by the 21st, but we'll see. I'll hold it till then, being optimistic.
Request to hold to the 21st. Do we have a motion?
I would move on behalf of the sponsor to hold it till December 21st.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And also Councilman Snappi, PCO 10-20, an ordinance relative to amendment of the Warwick zoning ordinance regulations for the installation of solar energy systems, not drafted. When would you prefer to be held?
First meeting of January for now. Please.
Second
The
meeting, I
first
think.
meeting of January, I believe, would that be Wednesday, January 6th?
Yeah.
All right, do we have a motion?
On
Make a
behalf of the
motion.
sponsor, I would
Six.
move that it be held January 6th.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
There being no further business of this committee meeting closes at 8:00 p.m.
Just to clarify, the PCO 1020 was held to January 6th. The prior item, PCO 3019, was held to when?
December 21st, I thought.
Correct.
Thank you.
Oh,
Folks, why don't we take five minutes here and then we'll get started. I'm ready when everybody else is. If we could just, everybody could click on their video just so I know you're with me. Then if you want to shut it off after, you're more than welcome to.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Councilman Sinapi, are you with us? He's got to get some honey for his vocal cords after that long public safety meeting he had there. By the way, if any meeting goes, subcommittee meetings go past 8 o'clock next year, I'm gonna have to phone in. It's like, be careful what you wish for, you got it, right?
Here.
All right. So is Phil with us tonight? I forgot.
I am.
All right, Phil. We got the A team tonight. All right. So,
There's a problem with Council President's audio. We can't hear him.
we all set, Phil? I couldn't hear you.
Yep. Yes, we are.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right. Warwick City Council meeting will come to order. The clerk will call the roll.
Marola,
Here.
Mr. Corley,
Here.
Mr. Howe,
Here.
Mr. Lattiser,
Here.
Mr. McAllister,
Here.
Mr. McElroy,
Yeah.
Mr. Ricks,
Here.
Mr. Sinapi,
Here.
Ms. Travis.
Here.
9 present.
Okay, Councilman Corley, could you lead us in the salute to the flag? You gotta put your mic on.
Just, okay. I pledge allegiance
To the
to the
flag.
flag
of
of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it
which it stands, one
one
nation,
nation,
Under
under
God.
God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty
with
and
justice
justice for all.
for all.
Phil, if you could play the national anthem.
Just 1 second.
Thank you, Phil. I'm just going to read through this rather long-winded Zoom notification. As we all know, we're in the middle of COVID-19, and the governor is, right now, we're in a 2-week pause. So we're continuing under the governor's orders where we would have a virtual meeting versus the Zoom application. So this is the following notice. The following options are available to the public to access this meeting. You may access or participate in the meeting using the Zoom application on a smart device or on a PC via the web at zoom.us and clicking on Join a Meeting in the upper right of the page. The webinar ID for this meeting is 978-8786-9794. Anyone wanting to participate via telephone only may call one of the following numbers. Non-toll-free numbers, while most mobile phone carriers do not place an extra charge on customers for toll calls, it is up to you to check with your carrier concerning potential charges you would be responsible for. Sorry about that. Should shut off my phone.
Fantasy football night tonight.
Yes, yeah, that was the ESPN dinger. All right, so non-toll-free numbers, 1-646-558-8656, 1-301-715-8592, 1-312-626-6799, 1-669-900-9128, 1-253-215-8782, 1-346-248-7799. The toll-free numbers available to the public anywhere in the U.S. are 1-877-853-5247, 1-888-788-0099, 1-833-548-0276, and 1-833-548-0282. Please note, if you experience trouble connecting via a toll-free number, please try the next number on the list. You will then need to punch in the webinar ID, which again is 978-8786-9794 on your touch-tone keypad. While everyone joining the meeting will be muted, if at the appropriate time during the proceeding you wish to ask a question, you may, if using a smartphone or a PC, click on the raise hand icon. The meeting moderator will then ask for the participant having raised their hand to unmute. After the question, answer, and further discussion, the participant will be muted again and will need to click on the raise hand icon or punch in *9 to ask another question. If phoning in, punch *9 on the touchtone keypad, the moderator will indicate when it is your turn to comment or ask a question. With that said, under executive communications, there are none. Under general communications, I just wanted to wish everyone well with this COVID-19. It was, I guess we have the distinct, wouldn't call it honor, that's for sure, but unpleasure of being #1 in the nation now per capita. And can't emphasize enough that during this 2-week downturn, that everybody take the necessary precautions to protect themselves and their families and stay home when they can. I just had a friend of mine in Cohasset be in the hospital for a week on oxygen. Didn't think that this was going to happen to him like many of us. And then the other reason that I was mentioning this is because we lost the chairman of our zoning board this week, Don Morash, who was a Warwick Rotarian, a member of the Ward 9 Republican committee up here, and also the principal and manager of Abbott Properties. that had a well-known reputation around the state of Rhode Island and was very generous with his time, not only to the city, but to local charitable causes. And Don will be a great loss. And it's, I think, an example to our entire community as to why we really need to be careful during COVID-19, because this can happen to you just within a mile or two of each other. I had one friend that, as I said, was in the intensive care unit for a week. And then our Warwick chairperson of the zoning board passed away. So at this point in time, I just ask for a moment of silence in the honor of Don Morris Jr. Thank you. Are there any other general communications? Councilman Howe.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I would like to also thank you for identifying and mentioning Mr. Morash. You mentioned he was with the Ward 9 Republican. You'd never know because his love for the city was vast, and he always was willing to talk to us and sit down and ask a question, get an answer kind of guy. Unfortunately, I am going to request another moment, if you don't mind, Mr. President. I have a couple names and some identify a couple. As many of you are familiar with the Weinman family here in Warwick, Kim Weinman, who's very involved with Pink Heels. She volunteers for the Rhode Island Military Organization as our lounge director. Her husband, Eric, is her right-hand man to go to and get it done person, a great husband. He lost his brother the beginning of this month after a year-long battle with leukemia. Also, Sergeant Adam DeCiccio. I may have said his name wrong. I will spell it DECICCIO. I mean no disrespect, but Sergeant DeCiccio served active duty with the 10th Mountain Division, did deployments to Afghanistan and deployments to Iraq. Came home, got his bachelor's, his master's, and then served as a volunteer for veteran services as well as at the VA. Unfortunately, we lost him earlier this week. And finally, an Ernie Batista, the father of Peter Batista. I ask that these three individuals be remembered in a moment of silence, Mr. President.
Thank you. The council will recognize a moment of silence in their honor. Thank you. Is there anything else under general communications from council members? Councilman McAllister.
Thank you, Council President. I know a lot of people are struggling due to COVID and the economy, and there are options available. I want to highlight if you own your home and you are struggling to pay your mortgage, the Rhode Island Housing has a program. It's called the Hardest Hit Fund. This is offered to Rhode Island homeowners who are impacted by this pandemic. And if you're struggling to make your payments, you would be eligible for a 5-year, zero interest forgivable loan to be paid up to 6 months of your mortgage payments. The loan will be forgiven and the lien will be discharged if the homeowner continues to occupy the property as their primary residency and does not sell, transfer, or refinance. So if you are struggling, this is an opportunity to reach out to Rhode Island Housing if you are a homeowner, and not only in the city, but across the state of Rhode Island. This would be a forgivable loan of up to 6 months of your mortgage payments. So I would recommend, if you're struggling with your mortgage, please reach out to Rhode Island Housing. They also have programs for renters as well. Hopefully, Washington, D.C. Will come up with the next COVID relief plan, hopefully this week. One of the things that is coming up is the foreclosures and the having people move out of their homes, that is going to expire, stopping that. So we are facing a housing crisis. So please utilize the programs at Rhode Island Housing if you are struggling, if you own a home, or if you're renting a home. There are programs available and funds available to assist you, and you can find all that information at the Rhode Island Housing website. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. I would also point out that there's student loan forgiveness right now, that they're freezing federal student loan payments, and that there are other programs available. And I would point out, and I think a lot of our constituents forget, that when they get those unemployment checks, that they need to be conscious of the fact that they need to keep some money out because they have to pay taxes on that income. And I think many of them forget that, and they pay, that they use the whole check. And I'm concerned that that may impact people later on because they've been receiving it for a while and haven't been holding out. So with that said, is there anything else under general communications? If not, we'll move on to acceptance of the minutes from the council meeting held on November 16th. Do you have a motion?
Make a motion.
By Councilman McAllister, seconded by Councilman Lattiser. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it, and acceptance of the minutes is approved. Announcement of appointments, there are none. Announcement of appointments requiring confirmation, there are none. We'll move to the consent calendar. PCR 11620, resolution relative to bids, committee report, finance.
Recommend favorable action on PCR 116-20.
So the recommendation is favorable action for action. Councilman Lattiser, you're going to
Move
move it.
favorable action on PCR 116-20.
Seconded by Councilman McAllister. Councilman Howe. Go ahead, Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you. Number one, 2016-014, banking services. It is to be held at the request of the sponsor for 3 months effective March 31st. 2020-223, purchase various tires, favorable action. 2021-199, floor mats, wet and dry vacuum mops, favorable action. 2021-222, purchase electric mountain bikes, favorable action. 221-223, FBI leader supervised training, favorable action. And that completes that item.
Okay. There are a number of items in public safety, I think, that were removed, but I don't see it on the consent calendar. Attorney Welch, you with us?
I am here. The abatements were next. And then as it pertains to the claims, the two items, the claim of Jeff Sweet and the claim of Michael Ashworth, were assigned to PCRs and held to other meetings.
Okay. Okay, so we'll go to PCR 11720, resolution relative to abatements, committee report, finance.
Committee recommends favorable action.
For action, Councilman Lattiser.
Move favorable action on PCR 117-20.
Seconded by Councilman McAllister. Go ahead, Councilman.
There was minimal discussion on it, Mr. President, and the committee recommends favorable action on the abatements.
Okay. Next item on the consent calendar is PCR 11820, resolution relative to bids. Councilman Sinapi, committee report.
You said relative to bids. I assume you mean the public safety?
Yeah, resolution relative to claims.
Got it.
Yeah. So so the recommendation is favorable action?
Yes.
And then we'll entertain. So the recommendation is favorable action. If you could move it,
Move for favorable action.
Seconded by Councilman Howe.
Yeah, both of these are held though.
These are,
So both, go ahead.
both the claims on there were held and given separate PCR numbers.
Yep.
Okay, so you're going to announce that, Councilman?
Yep. Got it right here. PCR 19-20. The claim of Mr. Sweet is getting held to the second meeting of January. And PCR
Okay.
20-20 claim of Mr. Ashworth, same thing, being held to the second meeting of January.
Okay, so I believe the full consent calendar has been moved and seconded. Is there any questions on the consent calendar that were not asked in finance or public safety? If not, a yes is to approve the consent calendar, and the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Marola,
Yes.
Mr. Corley,
Yes.
Mr. Howe,
Oh, I thought, yes.
Mr. Lattiser,
Yes.
Mr. McAllister,
Yes.
Mr. McElroy,
Yes.
Mr. Ricks,
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi,
Yes.
Ms. Travis.
Yes.
9 yes, consent passes.
So I lost you guys for a sec on the internet here. So I would assume everybody voted yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Sorry about that. The internet connection isn't the best. So the consent calendar stands passed. We'll move on to unfinished business. PCO.
Mr. President, you have the two items that were removed,
Oh,
PCR 11920 and PCR 12020.
Thank you. So which ones were that? That was the 195?
The two items were removed. Item 1 is the claim of Jeff Sweet, which is now known as PCR 119-20. And the committee recommendation was to hold until January 20th.
119. Okay.
And the second item,
So we're gonna hold till January 20th. Okay.
the other item was the claim of Michael Ashworth, which is now known as PCR 120-20, and a recommendation to hold till January 20th.
So we'll hold to January 20th on the recommendation of public safety.
Yes, please.
Okay. So now we'll move to unfinished business. We have PCO 3019 ordinance involving state law regarding unutilized commercial property. It's first passage. It's not drafted. Committee report, public properties. What's your
Hold to December 21st.
held till December 21st. Next item is PCO 920, an ordinance regard to amending Chapter 4030, PCO 818, smoking prohibited in public schools and on school grounds. First passage, not drafted. Committee report ordinance.
Hold to February 1st.
Held till February 1st. Next item on the agenda is PCO 10-20, an ordinance relative to amendment of the Warwick zoning ordinance, resolutions for the installation of solar energy systems. First passage, not drafted. Committee report, land use.
Hold to January 6th.
Held till January 6th. Next item on the agenda is PCO 1620, an ordinance relative to permitting and regulating charitable donation bins. That's first passage, committee report, ordinance.
Favorable action with amendments.
Fraction, Councilman Ricks.
Request favorable action.
Seconded by Councilman McAllister, Councilman Howe, Councilwoman Travis. Go ahead, Councilman Ricks. Do you want to make a motion to amend?
Move to amend pursuant to the list of amendments that I believe are in the possession of Assistant Council Solicitor Walsh.
Okay, I'll have him read those into the record if I could get a second first. Councilman McAllister, Councilwoman Travis, Councilman Lattiser, Councilman Howe. Okay, Attorney Walsh, if you could read those amendments, or read the amendment into the record.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Rick's Omnibus Amendment is as follows. On page 1, line 9, we are deleting Roman numeral 8 and inserting Roman numeral 2. On page 1, lines 20 to 21, we are amending so to make it read that Section 1, Chapter 32 of the City of Warwick Code of Ordinances is hereby amended by amending the title and adding Article 2 as follows. On page 1, line 23, we are adding to the chapter's title the words "and charitable donation bins." So we'll now read Chapter 32, junk dealers and charitable donation bins. On page 1, line 39, we are, after the word "closed," we are inserting a comma and the word "outdoor." On page 2, line 2, we are removing the language that appears in inner strike so as to make that sentence read "express written or implied authority." Page 3, line 39, we are deleting the words "city clerk" and inserting the words "building department." On page 5, line 45, we are deleting the words "abandonment, semicolon, notice of determination," and we are inserting the words "additional violation, semicolon, penalties." Page 6, line 26, before the period, we are inserting a comma followed by the words "or to a registered agent of the owner as filed with the Rhode Island Secretary of State." That completes the amendment.
Thank you. I was just going to compliment the count.
Can't hear you, Mr. President.
Right when he was going to compliment the council too.
To come up with a product that everybody agrees on an important issue. And so with that said, are there any questions on the amendment that was discussed previously?
I have no question on the amendment, Mr. President, but I do have a question on what you said because unfortunately you froze during your entire statement.
Oh, sorry about that. No, I was saying that I was complimenting the council on all the questions that you folks asked and how in-depth everybody got into it. And it was just nice to see how everybody worked together to come up with a solution that everybody agreed with. And, I wish you guys luck in the new year in that colloquy and what you're trying to do. And that's, the right way to go about things. And it was just, it was just nice to see. So in any event, that was the amendment. I know you guys asked a lot of questions in committee. Are there any other questions on the amendment? If there are not, a yes is to approve the amendment, and the clerk will call the roll.
Marola,
Yes.
Mr. Corley,
Yes.
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser,
Yes.
Mr. McAllister,
Yes.
Mr. McElroy,
Yes.
Mr. Ricks,
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi,
Yes.
Ms. Travis.
Yes.
9 yes to amend.
So the amendment stands passed. And Councilman Ricks, if you could move it as amended.
Move favorable action as amended.
Seconded by Councilman Lattiser, Councilwoman Travis, Councilman Howe, Councilman McAllister. Any further statements on this as amended? If not, a yes is to approve, and the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Marola,
Yes.
Mr. Corley,
Yes.
Mr. Howe,
Yeah.
Mr. Lattiser,
Yes.
Mr. McAllister,
Yes.
Mr. McElroy, Mr. McElroy,
Looks like he's frozen.
can't see him.
Wave, Jim.
Councilman McElroy, can you hear us?
I don't even see him.
Oh, he's giving a thumbs up.
Yes.
Yes, and a yes.
Okay, Mr. Ricks?
Mr. Rex, you a yes?
Yeah.
Oh,
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
you're on mute. Okay.
Mr. Sinapi?
Yes.
Ms. Travis?
Yes.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yes, I can hear you.
9
Yes,
yes
we
as
would-
amended.
Okay, that passes PCO 1620 as amended. That reminded me of that movie Rush Hour where they did the loop on the bus. And you get the same picture of the guy because Councilman McElroy was frozen. All right, so we'll move on to the next one. It's can you hear me okay? Okay, it's PCR 6820 resolution relative to claims. Mark, who we already. Hey, Lynn, you're breaking up. You're coming in. I can't hear you very well.
It's coming from McElroy's, I think.
Oh, Councilman, could you put yours on mute for us? Thank you. Okay, so PCR 6820 resolution relative to claims. Mark Hool, and ordinance. Do I have a committee report from ordinance?
If it's Mark Hule, it's public safety, and that's held till December 21st.
Held till December 21st. Okay, next one is PCR 19519, a resolution relative to creating a commission to study health insurance benefits. Committee report finance.
Hold January 20th.
Held till January 20th. Next item is PCR 19619, a resolution to the General Assembly for additional funding for the Warwick Public Schools. That's not drafted, intergovernmental. That's held till December 21st? Yes, held till
Correct.
December 21st.
Yeah, 1221, I'm sorry.
Yep. Next item is PCR 41A20, resolution addressing fiscal request for education for fiscal year 2021. That's not drafted. Committee report, finance.
Hold January 20th.
Held till January 20th. Next item on the agenda is PCR 9520, resolution in regards to erecting stop signs on the secondary roadway of Grimshaw Place, Hackman Place, Worth Street, Crystal Drive, and Lockwood Street. Committee report, it's not drafted. Committee report, public safety. That's held till,
Well, which one? For Latticers? That one's held.
held at PCR 9520.
January 20th.
Yeah.
January 20th.
January 20th, held till January 20th. PCR 10820, 2019-406, State of Rhode Island, toilets, portable, rental, committee report, finance.
That is held, I'm sorry, that is favorable action.
Favorable action. For action, Councilman Lattiser.
Move favorable action on PCR 108-20.
All right, seconded by Councilman McAllister, Councilman Howe. That didn't get flushed?
Not yet.
All right. Okay, so is there any discussion on this item regarding the portable toilets? If not, a yes is to approve and the clerk will call a roll.
Mr. Marola?
Yes.
Mr. Corley?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi?
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Travis?
Yes.
9 yes.
Okay, PCR 10820 and 2019-406 stands passed. I can't wait till the lighting goes in on the poles because maybe we can push Verizon and some of the other companies to get 5G in our area because that'll make a difference for a lot of the freezes that we're getting. Next item is PCR 10920, now 2021-141, liquid chlorine for McDermott Pool Committee report, finance.
Favorable action.
For action, Councilman Lattiser.
Committee recommends favorable action on PCR 10920.
Councilman Lattiser moves it, seconded by Councilman McAllister, Councilman Howe. Is there any discussion on that?
No.
I recall from the meeting, the pools still are not open, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded, no further discussion. The clerk will call the roll. A yes is to approve.
Mr. Marola,
Yes.
Mr. Corley,
yes,
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser,
Yes.
Mr. McAllister,
Yes.
Mr. McElroy,
yes,
Mr. Ricks,
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi,
Yes.
Ms. Travis.
yes,
9 yes. PCR 10920 passes.
Thank you. Passed. Next is PCO 2120 ordinance in regards to erecting no parking signs on Naples Avenue in front of the Starbucks lot facing westbound. It's for first passage. Committee report, public safety.
Committee recommended favorable action.
For action, Councilman Sinapi.
Move for favorable action.
Seconded by Councilman Howe. Any discussion on the ordinance for no parking, which was supported by a traffic study? If not, a yes is to approve, and the clerk will call the roll.
Marola,
Yes.
Mr. Corley,
yes,
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser,
Yes.
Mr. McAllister,
Yes.
Mr. McElroy, Mr. Ricks,
yeah,
Yes.
yes,
Mr. Sinapi,
Yes.
Ms. Travis.
yes,
yes,
9 yes, first passage.
PCO 2120, first stands passed, first passage. Next item is PCO 2220, an ordinance in regard to erecting no parking signs for Arnold Avenue and Hall Street. That's first passage, public safety.
Committee recommended favorable action.
Okay, if you could move it for me, Councilman Sinapi.
Move for favorable action.
Seconded by Councilman Ricks, Councilman Howe. Any discussion on this? It was also supported by a traffic study. If not, a yes is to approve for first passage, and the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Marola,
Yes.
Mr. Corley,
yes,
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser,
Yes.
Mr. McAllister,
Yes.
Mr. McElroy, Mr. Ricks,
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi,
Yes.
Ms. Travis.
yes,
9 yes, first passage.
PCO 2220 stands passed.
yes,
Next item on the agenda is PCR 10520, resolution in regards to erecting stop signs on Suburban Parkway. Committee report, public safety.
Committee recommends favorable action.
For action, Councilwoman Travis.
I move favorable action on PCR 105-20.
Seconded by Councilman Lattiser, Councilman Ricks, Councilman Howe. Any discussion on the stop signs that were recommended by a traffic study? If not, a yes is to approve, and the clerk will call the roll.
Marola,
Yes.
Mr. Corley,
yes,
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser,
Yes.
Mr. McAllister,
Yes.
Mr. McElroy, Mr. McElroy, Mr. Ricks,
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi,
yes,
Yes.
Ms. Travis.
Yes,
9 yes, PCR.
yes,
Okay. PCR 10520 stands passed. Next item is PCR 10620, a resolution in regards to erecting a four-way stop sign on Kenyon Avenue. Committee report, public safety.
Committee recommends favorable action.
For action, Councilman Sinapi.
Move for favorable action.
Seconded by Councilman Ricks, Councilman Howe. Any discussion on this that was supported by a traffic study for four-way stop signs? If not, a yes is to approve, and the clerk will call the roll.
Marola,
Yes.
Mr. Corley,
yes,
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser,
Yes.
Mr. McAllister,
Yes.
Mr. McElroy, Mr. Riggs,
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Riggs,
Also, yes.
Mr. Sinapi,
Yes.
Ms. Travis.
Yes.
9 yes, PCR 1 pass.
Stands passed. Next item on the agenda is PCR 11420, resolution in regards to erecting stop signs on the eastbound and westbound of Petaconsett Avenue where it intersects with Budlong Avenue. Committee report, public safety.
Committee recommends favorable action.
For action, Councilman Ricks.
Move favorable action.
Seconded by Councilman Howe. Any discussion on this request for stop signs that was supported by a police department recommendation? If not, the clerk, a yes is to approve, and the clerk will call a roll.
Mr. Marola,
Yes.
Mr. Corley,
Yes.
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser,
Yes.
Mr. McAllister,
Yes.
Mr. McElroy,
Yes.
Mr. Riggs,
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi,
Yes.
Ms. Travis.
Yes.
9 yes.
PCR 11420 stands passed. Next item on the agenda is PCR 11520, a resolution to the Kent County Water Authority and the Public Utilities Commission asking for an investigation in regards to the significant water rate increase. Committee report, intergovernmental. Councilman Corley.
That is being held until.
No, it's favorable action.
Favorable action. I'm sorry, favorable action.
That's okay. Councilman McAllister, can you move it for me?
Yes, I move favorable action on PCR 115-20.
Seconded by Councilwoman Travis, Councilman Howe, Councilman Ricks, Councilman Lattiser. Is there any further discussion that we didn't have in committee on that? Councilman McAllister.
I would like to be added as a co-sponsor, please.
Absolutely. Anybody
Ditto.
else want to be added? Councilman
President, myself,
Councilman Sinappi, and Councilman Howe and Councilman Lattiser all want to be added as
Yeah.
co-sponsors. No objection. Is there any further discussion that we did not already have in committee? If not, yes is to approve, and the clerk will call a roll.
Paula,
Yes.
Mr. Corley,
Yes.
Mr. Howe,
yes.
Mr. Lattiser,
Yes.
Mr. McAllister,
Yes.
Mr. McElroy, Mr. Riggs,
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi,
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Sinapi,
Yes.
Ms. Travis.
Yes.
9 yes.
PCR 11520 stands passed. Move to unanimous consent. Ward 1, anything on unanimous consent?
Pass.
Ward 2,
Pass.
Ward 3,
Pass.
Ward 4,
Pass.
Ward 5,
Pass.
Ward 6,
Pass.
Ward 7,
Pass.
Ward 8,
Pass.
and Ward 9 passes. Councilwoman Travis.
If there be no further business of this honorable body, I move to a docket session.
Councilwoman Travis moves to the docket session. We have a second. Councilman Lattiser seconds. Councilman Howe, Councilman McAllister. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
City Council is now in docket session. Ward 1, anything to docket?
No.
Ward 2, anything to docket?
Pass.
Ward 3, anything to docket?
Pass.
Ward 4, anything to docket?
Pass.
Ward 5, anything to docket?
Pass.
Ward 6, anything to docket?
Pass.
Ward 7, anything to docket?
Pass.
Ward 8, anything to docket?
Just one.
Okay,
Resolution in regards to proposed bus stop on Lambert Lind Highway.
so intergovernmental. And I have one, a resolution for a school bond. And I'll put that into finance. And that's it.
Where are you going with,
What's that?
Councilman Sinapi's? What committee did you put Councilman Sinapi in?
Intergovernmental. Yeah.
Okay, For both of you, you need to get,
Oh, go ahead.
I need both your docket memos emailed over, please.
Okay. Do that now. Anything else? All right. If not, have a good evening and we'll see you in a week or two here.
Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Oh, fuck.